Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Last Pull podcast. I'm here with special guest Coop's Collection, aka Coop. How you doing, Coop?
I'm well, and I'm just realizing the last pull can apply to trading cards too, because we're always trying to pull
Isn't
good
that
stuff.
great?
Yeah, yeah.
Come
I'm
on, the
assuming you
last
mean it in the
pack.
sense of pulling like a boss fight or something.
Yeah, that was the in joke with the podcast. It was about how when you're doing a raid boss in probably any game, but in Guild Wars 2, you'd always say, "Okay, last pull magic. That's time, just last pull." And for some reason, whenever you say that, you have like a way higher likelihood of actually finishing the boss. So that's
Oh yeah,
where it comes from. But I guess it can apply to cards too.
last pack magic.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's true. Well, I feel like to start off, we really need to tell about how we kind of met, because I think it's the most hilarious story. Whenever I explain it to people, because they're usually like, "Wait, how do you know this guy?" I'm like, "Well, we play this game." But but what really happened, at least this is my understanding, and you can tell from your perspective too, is I think you wanted to raid in Guild Wars 2, and then you joined my guild. Is that kind of how things started?
Yeah. So and I don't remember when it was. Maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember when I first got involved in trying to do raiding in Guild Wars 2, because I think like I've played for years and years and years. But I was always slightly intimidated by endgame, like group content, and my only exposure to it had been like people talking about static raiding in World of Warcraft, and I hadn't played World of Warcraft in the past, but there's all the memes about like people are giving up their social life because they've got a raid at a certain time on a certain day during the week. And I really wanted to unlock the legendary armor that's available in Guild Wars 2. And at the time, the only way to do that was through raiding. And so I had joined the Raid Academy Discord to kind of like learn about raiding, because they do a lot of like training sessions. And then once I felt confident in joining instanced group content like that and kind of knowing the general gist of Guild Wars 2 raids, I joined the SG. Is it pronounced Skein? I'm not sure if I've
Skane.
ever Skein. Okay, I joined the Skein gang. Oh, that makes a little more sense. It sounds better, right? I
Yeah,
joined the
it does.
Skein gang, um, which is a organized guild around getting groups to raid together. And I ended up joining a static, which I believe it was on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we started as like a brand new group. One of our leaders left pretty early on, and I got asked to kind of help lead it. So I went from never having raiding to co-leading this static raid group every week. And we went for about 8 months, I think. We had transitioned from a beginner group to an experienced group, so we were clearing the Heart of Thorns wings 1 through 4 within our 2 hour slot. And then the group kind of went through a lot of over like shuffling of people. People were leaving, people were coming, and we ended up calling it quits after almost a year. But yeah, I was in Skein Gang because I wanted to learn how to raid and be a raider so I could unlock legendary armor. And I did. I ended up unlocking the heavy legendary armor set, and I'm almost at the light armor set. I've got about a little over 250 Li, and I need 300 to get my next set. And then I have open world medium armor. So yeah, I feel very good about wings 1 through 4. I don't really know 5, 6, and 7 or 8 much at all. I've done 8 once, and that was when you took me through it.
It's fun.
But I hop in whenever I can. Actually, I did Wing 2 last night because there was just a random group in LFG, and I was like, I need some LI. Like, let me in there. So long-winded answer, but yeah, I joined Skein Gang.
Very cool. Well, this is
Yep.
how. What's interesting is when I first started Scan Gang, there were like 2 teams, and I was on both of the teams. But then slowly, more people were interested in joining teams, so it just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And then it got to a point where I no longer knew the people on the teams. There were other moderators and people helping out, helping organize the teams, different static leaders like yourself, right? And so I suddenly had no idea who was actually in the guild to some extent. And so I had no idea that for a year you were you were in this group because I was just managing everything at once, right?
And there's
And
like
even
3 or 4 different guilds, right? like
Yeah,
all under the
there were
same
four at
umbrella.
the time. We actually
Yep.
just merged all the NA ones into one because the reason for, I guess, the slide aside, but the reason there were four guilds wasn't necessarily to do with membership. It was more to do with access to the food in the guild bank. We discovered a problem that I actually later put in like a little ticket for and said, can this be fixed? But it was the ascended food had like a 5 minute cooldown. But there was no
Mm.
real reason that the ascended food needed a 5 minute cooldown in your guild storage. So what ended up happening is we would have like four different raid groups on a Tuesday night, and they would all go to put the food down at once, and then none of them could put the food down because they were all like fighting with each other for 20 minutes to put food down. So we created
Wait, the whole
multiple
guild
guilds.
had a cooldown? It was like
Yeah, the
it wasn't per
entire guild
person?
had a 5 minute cooldown for the
Oh
ascended
my
food.
gosh.
So of course, this creates a huge problem when everyone's trying to access the food at once. So they actually just changed this so that it's 30 seconds. They changed it like a year and a bit ago, I think. So now we all merged into one big NA guild and one big EU guild because the food thing is just no longer relevant, right? But yeah, we are pretty big communities, about 9,000 people in the Skein Gang Discord now. We've helped thousands and thousands of people get into raiding content. But I discovered you not actually from Skein Gang at all, which is very funny. But one day, my daughter, I got her into Pokemon, and she started watching all of the first season of the first TV show, right? The OG, if you will. And she was watching this, and she just fell in love with it. It was magic. She was maybe 4, right? She came to me and she would tell me like the whole storyline, and she'd go into great detail. It was a huge deal for her. And I thought, well, man, like when I was her age, I had Pokemon cards and stuff. I was like, maybe I can help her out with that. But I knew nothing, right? The hobby is very intimidating to get into when you're just like brand new in a sense to it. So I thought, well, what should I buy? What should I look at? And I started like just going on YouTube and like looking at like what do people say about these things? And I just stumbled upon your content. I think might have been like YouTube Shorts or TikTok or something like that. But I just stumbled upon it and I went, huh, this is really cool. Like how wholesome. And I just kind of fell in love with it and I started binging it really hard. Um, so I was watching all of these Coop videos, and then literally the same week that I'm doing that, I'm in the Guild Wars 2 Twitch section as I do, and you're there, and you're streaming Guild Wars 2. And I'm like, what the heck is this Pokemon guy doing? He's playing Guild Wars 2. That's crazy. So I immediately go in there into your channel, and I'm like, Coop, I can't believe that you're playing Guild Wars 2. Like, that's so cool. I had no idea. I've been watching all your stuff on YouTube. And then you just said, Sneb? Aren't you the guy that runs the Skein Gang Guild? And I was like, whoa. Like, I am not important enough for this guy to know me. So I thought that was really cool. And then we've obviously chatted a bit and played together since. You sent my girl some cards. She has them in her special binder. She thinks that's really neat. She talks about it sometimes. Now my wife has been Coop-fluenced because she literally watches your stuff all the time. I'm laying in bed and I hear your voice and she's watching on her phone like the latest short. And I was like, oh, did you see the one where the guy comes back because Coop didn't see that it was the Pokemon Center card? And she's like, yeah, I just finished that one. Isn't he just so great for doing that? So she's been totally Coop-fluenced, and now she's always talking about Pokemon cards and organizing them. She even went to our local game store for a Learn to Play event. My wife did.
Wow.
She went with my daughter, and she's like, I want to learn to play the game. So she went, and all these people apparently rallied around her and taught her how to play. So the Pokemon community is so cool. But yeah, that's how we kind of know each other. It's funny. Two worlds collide, and boom, there it is.
That's awesome. My OBS keeps disconnecting, so I think my YouTube crew might be having some issues on I don't know what it is. I've never had OBS disconnect, and now it's disconnected 3 times
Ah,
during our conversation so far. I don't know if it's
interesting.
because of the stream together or not, but
Yeah,
that's what I
that's
get for
weird.
multi-streaming, man.
Yeah, multi-stream is a tough life sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology. I haven't ascended to that level yet, but I hope to at some point. Yeah, do you have it sorted? Is it good? Is it okay?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's weird because in the YouTube stream manager, it keeps saying like stream ended and starting a new one. But hopefully, I'm gonna go to my actual YouTube channel. Let me take a look at what's like. All right, it says I'm live. It also has 3 copies of our stream. It keeps ending it and starting a new one. So apologies to anyone with notifications turned on. That's probably
Yeah.
getting
You're
blasted
getting
right now with stream
mega coop
notifications.
fluenced right now.
Yeah,
All the
exactly.
notifications.
But yeah, I thought it was so funny when you because I've always been a big fan of Guild Wars 2 and MMOs, and I only just started doing gaming streams on Twitch. I don't know, within the last 6 to 7 months, I think probably beginning of the year. Because one of my first streams was because I started playing WoW Classic in December, like on Christmas Eve or something, as my first foray into that after watching the Only Fangs play.
Hmm.
And yeah, so Guild Wars, I've been playing since it released. Was a huge Guild Wars 1 fan. That was my main MMO. I think it came out when I was like 14, and I didn't have a job and couldn't pay for a monthly fee for the MMOs like World of Warcraft. And so Guild Wars 1, I played during my real formative teenage years. So it's really stuck with me for a long time, and I have really enjoyed Guild Wars 2. Obviously a much, much, much different game, but I definitely understand kind of the evolution that the MMO genre has kind of gone through over time. But yeah, when you popped in my chat and I recognized the name, not that we'd ever interacted before, but definitely a funny meet for sure. I'm glad you popped in too, because now we, have a friendship, which is great. So
Yeah, I'm just always excited when people are playing Guild Wars because, like you, man, it must have been 2005 ish when I first started playing Guild Wars 1, and I think I was like 11 or 12. I was at my friend's house. He had one of those old, stocky, big computer screens. They had the kind of like the bubble, right? And he said, "Look, I found this game, and it's like RuneScape, but it has better graphics." And I was like, "No way!"
nice.
Right? So we go, and his brother, who was like 3 or 4 years older, had an account, and so we were like logged into his account, and I made a warrior. And I still remember what I named the warrior because I was not very creative. I named him Slick Blade Point. I don't know why that was it, but that's what it was. And so I ran around the pre-searing, and I remember a black die dropped. And for context, for those that don't know, that's actually like quite rare in the pre-searing and very valuable. And this was many years ago. And his brother was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, this is like really valuable." And I was like, "Whoa, okay, cool." And I just got like hooked after that. I just thought the game was so beautiful. I really liked the music. I liked the tone of the game. And I played it all the time through my teenage years. Every summer vacation, I remember I would just like play Guild Wars all day for many days in a row. I just loved the game, maybe much to my parents' chagrin. So I've always been a huge fan, and it's been a privilege to be a part of the Guild Wars 2 community into my adult years as well. Even going and meeting people at the different meetups, which you should go to sometime, Coop. You should go to the Guild Wars 2 meetup in Seattle. Just set up a
Oh
table.
man, I haven't been
No one
out
will
to
say
Seattle
anything.
yet. Yeah, I might be out in Seattle later this year for one of like the big card events, but yeah, I travel a lot now for card shows and stuff. So who knows? Maybe my schedule will line up with like Guild Wars 2 meetup sometime.
Yeah, that's in end of August is I think the
Okay,
meetup, which is pretty neat. But anyway,
very cool.
I'm
So
I
you're
know.
were you a RuneScape player then too? It sounds
Oh
like, I mean, I
yeah.
feel like every MMO player was at one point a RuneScape player, right?
Oh yeah, I don't even. I have no idea how I got into RuneScape. I must have been like, I remember. I think it was grade 4 or 5, right? Like I was really young, elementary school age, and I was playing RuneScape, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I think that's really what was my introduction to MMORPGs, and I think what made it very
Mm-hmm.
special was sort of that social dynamic. Yeah, all my friends were on there too, so we just that's what we did.
I remember. I think I was on the middle school bus, so it might have been like sixth grade. I don't remember. Um, and we had assigned seats on the bus, and the kid who sat next to me, he was talking about RuneScape because he played all the time, and I was like, "What is that?" And he started telling me about it. I was like, "I've got to go try that." And this was in the time of um, like dial-up internet. And so for for anyone who's a little younger than us, you used to have to get on the internet and it would take over your phone line. So you couldn't make calls and people couldn't call your landline. And I used to make my parents so mad trying to play RuneScape. And our computer, it was like an old Gateway 98 or something. And man, loading on RuneScape, it was so slow, like loading into new maps, because whenever you transitioned like onto a new area, like
The
a
chunk.
loading thing would pop up. And oh my gosh, I was chugging along, but I had so much. And this was like RuneScape Classic, like the old 2D before old school RuneScape was a thing, RuneScape 3, all that stuff. And man, I did everything a free member could do. Like beat the dragon, unlocked rune plate armor, had full rune two hand, all that good stuff. And I've tried old school RuneScape. I've bounced off it a few times over the years, but nothing really latched on to me like Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 really did. So, but yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
every MMO player has at one point gone and tried at least old school RuneScape nowadays. So
Have you tried Lost City? Do you know about
I
that?
haven't.
So
Mm-mm.
Lost City is a fan throwback to 2006 RuneScape. So it's like old school now is almost like a private server, right? There's just so many additions to the game. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it isn't quite like what RuneScape originally was. It was a much simpler time. There was less quality of life. Things were more difficult. There wasn't a grand exchange, right? There were lots of things that they've added now for a lot of quality of life that make the game a little bit easier or more fast paced. The game used to be a lot slower and more social, I think. So these people went and found like a 2006 version of the game, and they've been kind of like patching the missing code into it. But you can effectively play RuneScape from 2006 there. And I've actually gone on and played through pretty much all the quests. It's kind of a cool. It's free. Like they don't make any money because it's effectively a private server.
Right.
But yeah, you could just go play it. I don't know if you can stream it. People stream it on YouTube and they seem okay, but I don't know if you can stream it on Twitch.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think Twitch
it's
definitely, because
good.
I looked into playing Turtle Wow. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
one? It's
I
really
heard a little
popular.
bit. Yeah.
And it's basically classic but better. And I was looking into it, but then I was like, oh, I can't really stream it on Twitch because that's kind of a no to stream like private server stuff. I don't think YouTube cares, but I don't stream on my gaming YouTube stuff. I mainly just stream gaming on Twitch, so didn't end up popping into it. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting when a community that's passionate about a game gets control over like modifying it, because it's so often that a lot of community feedback kind of falls on deaf ears, at least in all the gaming space, right? I'm not harping
Yeah.
on one specific game or one specific community, but um a lot of times there's really great community feedback that ends up just not aligning with the developer's vision. And because of that, a lot of times there's just you never see any of that come to light. And we get into the uh private server space, a lot of those community suggestions are implemented at some point, whether it's quality of life stuff, we talk MMOs, new classes, new races, like all that sort of thing. So it's always really cool to see the imagination of the community kind of come to life through private servers a lot. And I've been playing a lot of City of Heroes recently. I don't know if you ever played that back in the day.
No.
NCSoft was also the publisher of City of Heroes. So superhero MMO released in 2004, actually before World of Warcraft, and NCSoft shut it down in 2012, and it actually came back in 2019 via a private server, which is now officially licensed by NCSoft.
Wow.
They are running a private server with the blessing of NCSoft. Now, it's probably a little easier to do that when there's no live version of the game. Um, but it's really cool to see them release new power sets, new maps, all the stuff that they're just creating, you know, on their own as volunteers of running this private server, not making money off of it and stuff. So yeah, it's very cool to see.
What do you think would happen if the devs let people do that with Guild Wars 2? Like, let's not even assume it was a private server. Let's just say the devs were like, you know what, Guild Wars 2 community, you can do whatever you want for a month. What do you think people would create?
I think you would see a lot of Guild Wars 1 influence filter in very quickly. I think a lot of Guild Wars 2 veterans are people who played Guild Wars 1 and kind of have some nostalgia for some of the classes and some of the skill systems. I think the biggest thing would be classes and races. I see a lot of requests around like, why can't we play as the Tengu? Why can't we play as Skrit? Right. So I think new races, because I would say Guild Wars is one of the few MMOs that has never released a new race over the course of its life. It's been up for 13 years, and it's the same 6 races that came at release, which I think is a very unique thing for MMOs. You oftentimes see new races introduced to the game. So I think new races would crop up pretty quickly. And I think you would see some of the original Guild Wars 1 classes built out. The monk, I think we're going to get some of those in the upcoming expansion. We've
Yeah.
seen the Paragon, the Ritualist teased a little bit, but I think the Monk and that would be the big 3. Paragon, Dervish, and Monk are the 3 that didn't quite make their way into Guild Wars 2. There's flavors of them, but I think we might see full-fledged classes like that. And then I think the races. Those are the 2 biggest things that come to mind for me. I think old school RuneScape has the closest community driven. They have a polling system, so the devs will propose things, and the community gets to vote on whether or not they want to see it implemented or not. I don't know how much say they have in like new ideas and getting those polled, but I do know that they get to help influence what new things are actually added to old school RuneScape. So I think even a polling system could be cool for Guild Wars 2, but I think if the community got the reins of development, those would be 2 of the classes and races would be 2 of the biggest things that would happen. I think the UI, I see
Oh,
that
yeah.
talked about a lot. I think the community would tackle UI as fast as they could as well.
Yeah, I think if you let the community have free reign, I think they do much of what you just suggested. I think perhaps for me, one of the most important ones would be the UI. It is wild to me that Guild Wars 1 UI is more customizable than Guild Wars 2 UI. That is just like the craziest meme ever. I just
Yep.
can't believe that in Guild Wars 1, because you and I both did this. We went back and played Guild Wars 1 for a little bit and did like the hardcore mode. When I went in there, I was like, I can make my experience bar a square floating in the middle of the screen, but I can't touch anything like that in Guild Wars 2 at all. That's just strange to me. And I don't know what sort of the technical limitation might be because of that, because my understanding is that Guild Wars 2 works off of an adapted Guild Wars 1 engine. So
I've always heard that, yeah.
you think they'd be similar, but
Yeah.
I guess it's more complex than we understand. I also think people would do a lot of Guild Wars 1 throwbacks. We would definitely have a new starting area for a new race. It would definitely be the Tengu for sure. People like the bird people a lot. I always wondered why
Mine
they
would
didn't
be
do that.
dwarves. I would say that there's a hidden
Dwarves.
society of dwarves that did not undergo the rite of the dwarves in Guild Wars 1, so they didn't turn to stone. And it's like it's almost like the bears that just got released in Janther Wilds, right? Like
Yeah.
the land bears have never existed. It's only been the ones up in the Shiver Peaks, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there could be a hidden dwarven faction that I'm a huge like fan of dwarven fantasy. Like playing WoW Classic, I'm dwarves through and through, and so I was very disappointed when dwarves weren't a playable race. I understand the lore behind it, but yes, Tengu number 1 most requested. Me personally, I would love to see the dwarves show up, but can understand that's never going to happen because they're all stone. But when they
Yeah.
Secrets of the Obscure, when they have the dwarven, they brought oh gosh, what's the name of it? I should know because it's the Deldrimor dwarf city, right? They
Yeah.
brought from Guild Wars 1, remade it in Guild Wars 2. It's an island. Um, and it literally looks like they took Norn models and shrunk them down to make the dwarf models. and they're all just riding small, shrunken down raptors and stuff. But when I saw that, I was like, that's a way to introduce the dwarves as a race, is because the mist, it's basically like the multiverse, right? There's an infinite amount of alternate realities in the mists. So why not have a reality where the dwarves didn't undergo the rite and the Great Destroyer was still destroyed? I don't know. I'd love to see the dwarves, but I don't. I'm not holding my breath.
I always had this vision where they could do the dwarf. There'd have to be like some pretty crazy like lore stretching here, but I always thought, why don't they do an underground expansion, like the depths of Tyria, and they go and they find like this hidden tunnel that leads you to this underground society where suddenly there's a massive dwarven population, and it could just be like delving through all these underground dungeons, but then it could come out into like a new part of Tyria or something if you wanted to. But I always wonder why they didn't do something like that. I think people always talk about underwater expansions too, but underwater combat is a little bit too undercooked for that to work.
Well, so do you think the new expansion is going to have any underwater overhaul? It's an island. The water mount is the focus. Like, it almost feels like they're setting themselves up to either do nothing with underwater and it still flop. I mean, underwater combat's always kind of been rough. Or it's an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to focus on underwater. We're going to revamp it. We're going to make the mech work underwater. Because it's really interesting that they're focusing on truly the water mount, right? The skimmer hovers over water and goes faster over it, and it can dive underwater. And the whole expansion is based around an island. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting rumor that there could be opportunity to kind of revisit underwater combat in the Visions of Eternity expansion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that it's the skip. I mean, they're probably going to do a good job with it, but I always had this vision where I was like, okay, if they do another underwater mount, they could do like a dolphin, and you could like ride the dolphin, and it could, think about it as like the griffin of the sea, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Think about
You
how
go fast
cool.
speed.
Yeah, exactly. So you could get like super speedy underwater, and then you could jump out of the water and do like tricks and flips and stuff, and then to accelerate and get more speed going down again. I thought that would be like the coolest way that they could add an underwater mount. The other thing I really wanted to see was, I think that they undercooked the turtle mount. I think that they could basically add another saddle to existing mounts and have it so that other people can ride with you. And imagine
Like
if they did
a
that
mega
for the
transport.
Griffin. Exactly. But imagine if they did that for the Griffin. Like, there's that community that does all the Griffin riding and stuff.
Yep.
What if they suddenly had these extra saddles where they could take people on rides? That'd be so cool.
Honestly, that would be awesome if every mount had an extra saddle. Like, every mount could dual ride. So even if you're just playing with a buddy, right? You guys don't have to coordinate getting somewhere. It's just like, mount up, join my mount, right? And we'll get there together, sort of thing. I think that's cool. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's
I'm
one of
trying to
my
think of what other
visions.
games have like dual mount systems. Was there a version of that in Final Fantasy 14? Do you know? I thought
I
at
have
one
no
point there was.
idea. I feel like it's
Yeah,
relatively
that's definitely an
uncommon.
interesting take. Which is funny, as a game that released without mounts, right?
Yeah.
How big of a design change there's been since mounts were introduced. I mean, maps now have 2 waypoints instead of 20 plus waypoints, which is obviously because of the mount system. Which I miss sometimes. The fact that I have to choose a waypoint that's a mile away from where I need to get to, versus on the core maps, there's a mount literally 10 feet away, or there's a waypoint literally 10 feet away from another one. So,
Well, I actually wonder if there's more reason for something like that. One problem that I think the game has really struggled with, and I'm curious for your perspective on this actually. I think that the game, as it's become sort of more accessible and easier, it's opened up the doors for more abuse. An example of that is you'll have like really veteran players that will take advantage of the fact that they can just kind of sit there on a sky scale and shoot a fireball or whatever. And then they just kind of sit there AFK on 10 accounts and reap all the rewards. Because you can get all the rewards by hitting the boss like one time. And so I think
Yeah.
part of the reason that they do the different waypoints now is to make it so that if somebody dies when they're AFK, it's harder for them to, get the rewards or whatever.
Mm.
So that they're not just always within proximity of these big events. You have to intentionally go there. But I don't know that that completely solves the problem. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, as far as leeching goes, the one thing I'll say about Guild Wars 2 is it's got one of the best communities in an MMO I think I've ever experienced. And I think the reason that is because of the way the game is built, where you're not competing with people for stuff. You can't steal someone's mob, you can't steal someone's resource gathering. Whereas in World of Warcraft, like people compete for mobs, right? If someone else tags it first, you don't get credit. If someone starts mining that node, you can't get it. And Guild Wars 2 did away with that, where everyone can get credit, right? If they tag mobs, everyone has their own instance of a node, right? If you want to mine that silver, right? And I think because of the way that it's built, there's a lot less animosity towards other players just in the normal gameplay loop. And so even if I do come across people kind of leeching events, I don't really notice it very often, and usually unless it leads to failure. I think the only events I failed in recent memory were like the Su Wong fight in the first couple of weeks and months that came out, because that was a tough event and you had to really organize it. And now I think the most closely related to that is the Epoch. I think is how you
Epark?
pronounce his name. Fight, yeah. Those are ones where leeches will cause you to fail the event. I think those are tough to leech off of, but if people aren't focusing on pulling their weight in some of those events, it might lead to the whole group failing. And the only thing you lose out on is the time you spent doing it. Right. The event for Su Wong is a solid 30-minute ordeal. Epoch's probably the same thing. I mean, you're investing the time, and so it feels bad to fail those. But other than that, I mean, if someone wants to sit on a sky scale and shoot fireballs during Tequaddle, I do that sometimes to tag a bunch of mobs, and I'll keep an eye on the batteries. If they start to fall, I'll go towards one. But I mean, as long as the event's passing, I don't really notice it that often. So,
Yeah, I would agree.
but I
It's
can
generally
understand not.
unimpactful.
Yeah, like someone leeching kills and experience and loot has no impact on my experience or kills or loot. Like I still get all the credit I would get normally. So if that's how people want to play the game, like so be it. But I think it's when it gets into I'm kind of AFK in a massive event that needs the 50 people. I think I see that more often in convergences now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Convergences are pretty repetitive events, and they take a long time. I mean, it's a time commitment, and they don't want to go to all 4 islands and stuff. And so they kind of sit around. It's usually the easiest way is on a Revenant, it's on a Herald, just pumping
Yeah.
boons to boon tag. And they might just literally sit next to Timey and boon tag to get right, which is annoying because it is a 50-person event that you can't really change out people unless someone DCs and stuff. So that's probably the most recent of someone actually like leeching an event. It's probably convergences because you get daily rewards, and if you do it every day, it gets a little. That and Dragon Storm are the two daily ones that takes a bit of time, and I can see leeches.
Yeah, I feel like they've done a few things to try to mitigate those, but I always think it's an interesting balance because, on one hand, I think games being accessible is a very positive thing, but when people use that accessibility as a tool to sort of negatively impact other people's fun, I think that's when, yeah, like you said, that's when it's kind of not as good, right? Let's
Yeah,
stop
I think that's the
stop the
biggest
leeching
thing.
at Dragon's End.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's under. I can count on one hand the events that actually are impacted by leeches, um, and so I think it's such a small minority impact that there's not a huge amount of legwork that I feel like needs to be put into trying to address it. And like I said about like Guild Wars 2's just general design makes it so that trolling people is a really, really difficult. Besides for leeching, the only other thing is like mesmer portals is a way to troll people to do something they didn't intend to do. Um, there's not really mob pulling to get people killed sort of thing that can happen in like World of Warcraft and other MMOs. So I think the developers have done a great job in building a game that dissuades people from trying to troll because there's not really ways to do it. And there's just great design choices that make it so that it's not combative just playing the game in general when other players are around.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny because I had never really experienced fighting for loot other than maybe in RuneScape, but that never seemed like a big deal to me. In World of Warcraft, it was such a big deal in Classic. Holy,
Yep.
I'd never played Classic, right? So I'm going. Do you know the part? Oh man, you'll know it when I explain it. There, like the Quill Beast people, whatever those are called.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, in the Barrens, how one of like those first quests it makes you like wrap around the northeast part, and there's like a boss that you have to wait to spawn, and then you kill
Yep.
that boss and you finish the quest. Well, I I a lineup had formed for the boss, and I was
You were
finally
queuing
at,
for it.
yeah, we were queuing for the boss, and I was in a group of 5 because of course if you're in a group you can all get credit for it, and I'm in this group and we keep telling people like we are number 1 in the queue because at that point we were. And somebody kept like they would just run in, the boss would spawn, and somebody else would snipe it. And I was there
Tagging,
for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Just waiting, waiting and waiting and waiting. It was a
Yeah.
wild experience, but it is. Yeah, I guess I really appreciate the friendliness of Guild Wars 2 because of those kind of moments in other MMOs.
Yep. It's almost like I started playing WoW Classic for the first time just this past Christmas, and standing in one of the main towns, like just the map chat or the town chat, the vibe is so different than anything I've ever experienced in Guild Wars 2, right? Because every map has map chat in Guild Wars 2, and it's so rare that there's some sort of map wide argument happening. And I stand in Stormwind or whatever the Alliance capital is for 2 minutes, and there's like fights breaking out like in map chat and people arguing, and it's just like it's just such a different thing. It's really interesting how naturally Guild Wars 2 has just been a very welcoming and like kind community. Not to say there's not the occasional blunder when it comes to like people getting frustrated. You know, you might join a strike mission and it's not going well and people leave sometimes, but people aren't usually rude about it. They just be like, hey, minus DPS, like
Yeah,
best of
cat's on
luck, which
fire.
is
Gotta
kind of
go
like a
real
passive
quick.
aggressive, like this isn't going to succeed, but it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I on EU on the EU server they're a little bit more funny about it. Like one of the favorite, the meme is they'll say something like what I just said. They'll be like, "Ah, my cat's on fire. I gotta go." And then
Oh yeah.
just leave. It's supposed to
Oh,
be
that's
some kind
funny.
of signal that things are not going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever
Yeah.
experienced Baron's chat in Warcraft?
I
Because
don't
you'd have
think
to be
so.
horde for that.
So yeah, so I've been playing a line. I tried because I haven't been playing hardcore.
Yeah.
I had a hardcore character that I made in horde side, but I only got to level 10 before I died. So I was like, yeah, that was my shot. So no, I've not experienced Baron's chat, but I've heard the meme. Like I've heard Baron's chat said before, so I assume it's kind of a widespread thing.
Oh yeah, Baron's chat is yeah, it it is it's something you just kind of have to experience. It is the most unhinged place ever, and it's even funnier in hardcore because so many people they die and they restart and they're in Barons. So Barons is like really active because it's like what to level
It's like the
25 or
starting
so.
zone for
It's the
horde or some
second
of the
area
races.
for Horde, and everybody ends up going there because it leads you to
Gotcha.
pretty much everywhere else. And there's a big dungeon there as well. So yeah, it's yeah, Barrett's chat is pretty wild. It is really unregulated. There's no
Yeah, I
laws
can't
there.
imagine. Yeah, just I can't imagine taking the community I've seen, and not to say the community is bad. I'm just saying it's a little more volatile. And looking at the hardcore version of that just seems like it would just compound on itself. And so
Oh
I can't
yeah.
even imagine like just the frustration. Now, it was really interesting to watch the OnlyFans stuff because a lot of the streamers were just like they were just doing the event, right? They were taking part in this overarching thing being put on by Soda Pop and whoever else. But Yeah, I mean, just the normal hardcore player taking like what I've seen from the volatility of the community in just classic and applying a hardcore of like, if you troll me, my character can die permanently. It just seems like a mess. Just
Yeah.
cursing and
I
slurs waiting to happen.
yeah, I have been in dungeons where people have died, and it is
Mm,
there's no other feeling like it. It is playing hardcore is so interesting to me. It's amazing. Everything you do matters so much. Like I have a character that's like level 43 or 4 or something, and so I was getting really close to the end before I had to kind of take a break because I was busy with IRL stuff. But man, there were so many close calls. There was one time, oh, you might know this area because I think Alliance can go to it too. Oh, it's like right near the undead area. There's a human city there as well, I
yeah, there's
think.
the Scarlet Monastery. Are you
Yeah,
talking about that? Yep.
no, is that
It's a
no?
dungeon area.
No, there's it's somewhere else. I can't. There's this place where if you go slightly northwest or northeast rather of this like little horde undead outpost, there are all
Mhm.
of these like bandits or something, and I was doing this quest where I need to kill them and gather something from them. So I just was like killing all of these things. Now keep in mind I'm a hunter, I'm up there and there's like 50 of them, right? So I'm pulling them very meticulously. I'm kind of like I've almost like cleared them all and
Mhm.
then one of them spawns on me. And I go, "Oh no, I've hit the timer. They're going to start respawning on me." So of
Oh
course
gosh.
I start like I was actually talking to MightyTeapot on voice at the time, and I had my screen shared, so he was like watching, and we were just like chatting. And I went, "Oh no!" And so then I tried to pull my pet back and get my pet to take aggro, but I'm not very good at the game because I'm very new, and so some of that was like mishandled a bit. So I start running away, and then I start using like my consumables, and now they're all on cooldown. But then another one spawns on me, and now suddenly I'm like kiting, and I start panicking, like full out,
Oh gosh.
like my heart's like I wish I had a heart, like something to track my
Rate
heart rate
monitor.
because I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
because I was just going like a thousand beats per. I was just crazy. Like I was starting to freak out because keep in mind if you play hardcore, you might have spent like 100 hours on your character, maybe more, right? And at that point, I definitely had spent over 100 hours. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die! I was like running away, running and kiting. And Teapot was like, "Sneb, you need to kite away. You need to do this." And he was like walking me through it, and I was like, just like
Having a full
couldn't
on panic
handle
attack.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was one hit away from death, and I used glue, which is this thing
Oh
you
my
get from
gosh. One of the items, right?
one of the
And
items that
from
you
a
get from a
quest reward.
quest. Yeah, so I used the glue, and I ran away, and I think I might have even feigned death at one point, which is a skill that hunters have. So yeah, it was. It's very scary, but I really
Yeah.
like that stuff. I think it's super interesting and super fun to do the hardcore stuff.
I can definitely understand the draw. And it's funny because like you and I as like new WoW players, right? But I can understand the draw of the same reason people play hardcore Iron Man on in old school RuneScape. It's like I've played this game for thousands of hours. I need a new challenge. I need a new experience. And playing with the threat of permanent death changes how you play the game, right? Because if you've played the same game for thousands and thousands of hours, you kind of get into a groove of like, this is how I play it. And with that potential pitfall of if I make a mistake, my character's donezo, it's going to change how you kind of tackle things. So I can understand as like a longtime veteran, the excitement of that. As a newer player, I wasn't super drawn to it. Now, I wasn't involved in the OnlyFang stuff, which I can understand the community aspect of like being a part of that overarching event. Um, but I don't see the draw necessarily as a new player and jumping right into hardcore, especially not knowing the game at all. Um, I feel like for me, it would just lead to like messing up because I don't know the best skill to use in a situation. I don't know the mobs. I don't know the like all these things that a veteran's like. I'm putting my veteran expertise to use to be successful at hardcore, get to max level and raid. Versus I'm a new player and I don't even know which way is north. So best of luck to me if I mess up. But
Yeah,
I
it's
definitely see
really
the draw of
exciting.
like, yeah,
It's really exciting. The thrill. There's nothing like it because I'd never played WoW before. Really, I think I had maybe once when I was like 14 for a month or something. So I had
yeah,
no concept of where anything was, what quests were hard, what enemies were dangerous. So, but I knew that I had one life, and so everywhere
yep,
I went, I carried that weight of like every decision is going to be exceptionally impactful because if I make the wrong decision or I fail the knowledge check, I'm dead. Like
yeah.
the little murlocs, yeah, I didn't know that those things, if you attack them, they like run away and they aggro all their friends. And so there's this clip of me looking out onto the beach and this horde of murlocs running toward me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Run
You find
away.
out very quickly how dangerous everything is in that
Yeah.
game. Especially coming from Guild Wars 2, where it's like you can fight a bunch of mobs at once. If you're fighting more than two mobs in WoW, like you better be good because it can be
Yeah.
tough.
That's why I switched to Hunter eventually because I was like, I'm not good enough
Yeah.
for this, but my pet can tank for a while. Yeah, raptors are scary. Just as raptors are scary in Guild Wars 2, they're scary in
Yeah.
World of Warcraft.
Sounds like we're gonna get some Asuran Inquest Raptors. That's got to be a skin, right? In the
Oh,
expansion at some
if
point.
it's not a skin, I'd be shocked. Yeah, I
That
think
yeah, it'd be a big miss.
that's really, yeah, I'm really excited for the new expansion. I think Visions of Eternity will be really, really neat. And I think ultimately what has me most excited is we're going somewhere we've never been before. If we were going to go back to anywhere, I would have said they need to go back to Cantha and kind of flesh it out a bit more. Because I think
Hmm.
End of Dragons, they touched on it, but they missed so many cool places they could have gone in Cantha.
Yeah.
But now they have an opportunity to just do something completely new, which is exciting because it gives them more creative freedom.
Yeah. I would have been interested to see like the modern day Kurzik and Luxon, as opposed to that kind of going away, in lieu of, oh gosh, the speakers and the whoever else. Um, I think it would have been cool if they had kind of still kept that faction based. Because what's it been, 200 and something years? Um, and the Luxon and Kurzik have been existing and against each other for a long time, right? Even in Guild Wars 1. So I think it would be cool to have explored them still existing potentially if we were to go back to Cantha. But yeah, I mean, I think all in all, their vision or their ability to bring past continents to life has been really cool to see. I love Path of Fire. Path of Fire is probably my favorite expansion. I think the desert
Really?
is gorgeous. It's so crazy to say because like
Wow.
I love the Path of Fire maps. I think they are gorgeous and they're deserts, but they look
Really?
so good.
That
Um
is super.
and
I think that might be one of the most unpopular opinions I've ever heard. Yeah,
that's
that.
so funny because I love it.
So you have
And
it
I
right
love
at
to
the
just
top. Path of Fire number one.
Oh yeah, for sure. The only thing
Wow.
I like, yeah, so for like End of Dragons, the only thing I really like about End of Dragons is like the fact that it introduced Mechanist, which is like my main class to play. But Path of Fire, like I love the maps. It introduced mounts. It introduced bounties, which I wish they still had. I mean, I know there's some of it in like the later like living world, but like bounties are fun. Sometimes I'll just like go do bounties for an hour because it's just like I just want to kill big bosses for a while. And so yeah, and I just think they all look good. I think the assets they used for even just like this sounds so weird, but like just the rocks look good. So yeah, I think Path of Fire is a beautiful, beautiful maps. The thing I like about End of Dragons is I don't like the green that they chose. In the original Guild Wars 1, which you've played, right? It's more of a turquoise for all of the jade, and the very bright kind of like noxious green they decided on I think takes away a lot, and I think the saturation levels are really weird. The greens and the purples and the pinks of like the flowers, everything's very bright. In End of Dragons, I think a color palette like addressing that would make me like it a lot better. I don't like new Kaineng in the original Guild Wars 1, like the original Kaineng City, like I loved it. I loved factions a lot. And I wasn't thrilled when they were like, oh, just kidding. That entire city has been destroyed. Like, here's a new one that you have no resonation with at all. There's no nostalgia around the new Kaineng City. Whereas there's some really cool spots in Path of Fire. You can go stand. You remember the mission, was it Dunes of Despair? Whichever one has ended with all the siege worms, right? And you're just waiting for the countdown to end. And you're standing on like there
Yeah,
was a
that's a hard
fake
one.
king, right? Well, that exact spot you can go stand in Path of Fire, where that mission took place. And they have the ghost worms. The enemies in that area in Guild Wars 2 are the ghost worms, which in the original Guild Wars, they were sieging you the entire time. They were shooting these big boulders at you. And so they lost that for me in End of Dragons, where I couldn't go relive the Guild Wars 1 areas as well. And you could say a lot about in even the core maps, right? They sunk the original Lion's Arch. You can kind of go down and see the original like lion statues and stuff. But rambling now about how much I like Path of Fire, because I think it was a great experience. I love the story. I loved fighting Balthazar. I thought that was just really cool, and I loved everything about it. So, and
So
that's fine if no one else likes it. I can be the one fan.
I think you will like it. I just think it's interesting that that's your favorite, because I don't think most people
Yeah.
would put that as their favorite. So you have Path of Fire, and then what?
I would say Path of Fire. Then I would so I'm gonna treat the big ones as their own, and then I would treat Secrets of the Obscure and Janther Wilds not in the same like boat because of how they were released and like the size of them at the time. So I would say Path of Fire, End of Dragons, Heart of Thorns.
Heart of
And
Thorns is your
then
least favorite.
yeah,
Wow.
I think the reason being, so now I like it a lot better with mounts, but one, mounts didn't exist, and the maps are so difficult to navigate without like knowing. And when it came out, the difficulty level going from core Guild Wars 2 into Heart of Thorns leaps like crazy. You go from kind of being able to fight mobs into like it almost gets into the level of like WoW Classic. Like you gotta like really focus on one mob at a time. And so and I think I was inexperienced in the game too when Heart of Thorns came out. Obviously, I played through the core game, but I wasn't very good at the game. I didn't know builds very well. I wasn't looking up builds online. And going into Heart of Thorns, I think I struggled a lot with, which kind of tainted my opinion of it. I think it's awesome that they introduced gliding. I think it's awesome they introduced elite specializations. But the story, the maps, because they were so confusing for me, yeah, Heart of Thorns just, I think I had a bad first impression that I've never gotten over. Now, nowadays, like I go back to Heart of Thorns all the time, right? I fly around on my sky scale. I navigate it so easily. Like I don't struggle through fighting the mobs because I know how to make a build now. But yeah, when it first came out, I was like, what? I don't really get this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not really having fun because I die so often. Um, and then for Secrets of the Obscure, I liked how it started. I was super disappointed with the graphics and the visuals for Internios. I think it's the ugliest maps in the game. And apologies to the art designers. Like if you're listening to this at any point,
Your work sucks.
I think
No.
that the Temple of, is it Phoebe? I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but
I don't know
I
either. I've
think
heard people say Febe. I don't know idea.
I think that map looks awesome. And I think they leaned way too heavy into like the assets of like the demon skin in too much stuff in like Internios. Um so I think the demons could have looked better. I wish they leaned more into like, the mob, the flesh reavers that are kind of like demons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think those assets look better than what they landed on for the generic mobs of the demons. Obviously, They just reskinned a lot of stuff, which is unfortunate, but I understand like the development aspect of that. I think the main characters in Secrets of the Obscure all look good. Like um, the main I don't know any names because I'm a fake fan, but the main woman in the story mode who's the demon, I think her model looks good. I think the main bad guys models look good. And I think the generic bad guys don't look good because I think their assets just don't really live up to what I'd expect from an expansion. So I would say I put Janthier Wilds over Secrets of the Obscure. I love the first part of Janthier Wilds. I love how the everything looks. I love land spears. I've been wanting a Paragon since Guild Wars 1 came out. So finally getting to chuck spears at things has been awesome. But yeah, all in all, I would say if I had to put everything in order, I'd probably say Path of Fire, End of Dragons, Janthier Wilds, Heart of Thorns, Secret of the Obscure. I think in that order. Did I miss any?
I don't know.
I think that's all of them.
That's super. I am just that is so interesting because here's mine,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, huh. Number 1, Heart of Thorns. Number 2, End of Dragons. Number 3, probably Path of Fire. Yeah, I'd probably put Path of Fire there. And then number 4 is definitely Janther Wilds, and the worst one by far is Secrets of the Obscure. So that's how I have it. I mean, if you put core in there, I guess core is somewhere in the middle, but
yeah. The thing is, there's so many components, right? There's what the maps look like. There is. I just got logged out because I haven't moved in a while.
yeah, that happened to me earlier.
There and my HUD's turned off. Control Shift H. There is the features of the expansion. There is the story. There is elite specializations. There's new weapons. Like all these components of it that make up the overarching expansion, right? So it's like there's features of these things that I like a lot. Obviously, Heart of Thorns, it's like they introduced elite specializations. The ones they introduced might not be my favorite ones, but that brought the idea of elite specs to light. They introduced gliding, right? They introduced raids. So it's like these things that exist because of the expansion. Whereas I would say the reason I don't really like Heart of Thorns is because I struggled through like playing it because I died so often because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't like the actual map layouts. I hate how confusing a lot of them are. Even today, like when I was doing map completion for stuff, I was like, how do I get? Because you have to go like down some little hole down a path around this thing and that, and it's like the actual map is in layers, and it's like, where am I? So there's like a lot of confusion there, but there's bits and pieces that I really like about the expansions. Like I said, for End of Dragons, I love the fact they introduced the Mechanist because a pet robot class is just perfect. So,
I
but
do
yeah,
enjoy
I'm
it a
glad
lot.
that
It's
there's
also
things that
extremely
everyone likes
strong.
about everything. Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree 100%. So I want to pivot slightly. I'm very curious. I know that you're a new dad. Welcome to the dad club and everything. I guess relatively
Thank
new,
you.
right? How long has it been now? A few months, right? Six? Under
He
6?
is getting close to 5 months.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah.
Yeah. How have you found the adjustment? I think a lot of people one thing I really struggled with at least is everyone's always like pats you on the back and they're like, good luck, right? Like it's kind of no, but nobody really talks about like how the lack of sleep kind of affects you and like how just it's just a huge shift. Like how you doing?
Yeah. Honestly, so I think one of the big things was I got really good paternity leave. The company I worked for at the time, I got 4 months paid paternity leave, which I think is
Wow.
very rare for the non-birthing parent to get. And I think that really, really helped out with things. Um, it worked out really well because my wife and I were both on leave for a solid, it's what's crazy is I got more paid leave than she did. And how
Wow.
unfair is that? As the person who gave birth, her company only gave her 5 weeks paid, and then she took the other 6 based off of FMLA, which is unpaid, and just you're not going to lose your job if you take the leave,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So But we both had the time off, which helped a lot. We also lucked out. Lil Coop is a phenomenal sleeper. We
Very
have
good.
really never, I think I can count on one hand the sleepless nights. And honestly, I think it was like maybe 2 times we've had like a sleepless night. And I'm doing air quotes because it's, it wasn't even really sleepless. It was just a little rough. But he's a phenomenal sleeper. He doesn't nap super great during the day, but we're getting better at that. But yeah, so whenever people talk about like, oh, like as a new parent, like you're just gonna be exhausted all the time, you're not gonna get any sleep. I haven't experienced that really,
That's
which has
very
been really
blessed.
great. So I've lucked out a lot. And even if we had the time off from work to be able to deal with that. I also, I've gone full time as a content creator in the last month, so um, that has helped as well. Like now, my schedule is very flexible. I don't have the normal like I'm at an office. Now, I've been working from home ever since COVID hit, but even still, like not having to be on a strict, from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. I'm in work mode. I'm on calls. I'm on meetings. All that stuff. So just the flexibility of that. And Lauren, my wife, is now she stays home full time, which is really helpful because that enables me to be able to really do more stuff around kind of content creation, whether it be streaming on Twitch or doing more shows or just all the administrative stuff that comes with being a content creator. So long-winded answer of it's going really well. It's been great. We've still been navigating kind of like how to balance me doing content during like streaming during the day, whether it's on Twitch or whatever else, and how to make it so that Lauren can still kind of get some breaks and not just, hey, even though you're kind of stay-at-home mom, parenting is still a partnership and it's still something that we do together. So I usually try to wrap up around like 3 p.m. Eastern time and then spend the rest of the evening, you know, because I have him in the morning, right? I'm the early bird. So it's like I'm up at 6 a.m. I feed him at 7. I watch him until about 8:30 or 9 when he goes down for his first nap. And then Lauren kind of takes over. So I'm free from, 9 o'clock until let's say 3 p.m. And then I'll come down and kind of take over. So if she can cook dinner and then I'll hang out in the evening and stuff. So it's crazy because if I was working a regular job, I'm almost like, when would I see my son? Because like pretend for a second,
true.
like I have to go to an office, right? Now, if I was working from home, it'd be a little different, but forever up until 2020, right? Everyone they're working from home was kind of like the super minority, right? So let's pretend like I have to get up, I have to get ready, I've got to get to an office, and then I work until at least 5, and then I have to commute home. He's already down for bed by then. When do I see my newborn, right? I probably don't for a long time. And so except for the weekends. And so I feel so fortunate and so lucky to and if I worked full time at a regular job too, working from home would be a huge boon, but just the flexibility that being a content creator allows me, I get to spend so much time with my son, right? Which is I see him every day, multiple hours every day, and it's really great to be able to have that. So but yeah,
Yeah.
I hate to say it's been easy, but it's been pretty easy. He's
That's
a great kid.
awesome. Yeah, my kids were pretty good at sleeping, but they like to wake up in the middle of the night because they get scared or whatever, and so
Uh-huh.
my bed has become everyone's bed, and
Ah,
it's a very interesting dynamic. I wake up and I'm like, oh, why is everyone all over? Like, you just wake up in the middle of the night because somebody kicks you or something. So it's kind of
yep.
interesting how all and then the dog is there as well, and it becomes quite a crowded space. But my one daughter, she had this weird breathing thing. And so she would
Mm,
wake up all the time in the night because she had really enlarged, I think they're called tonsils and adenoids. And
yep.
so like you'd look in her mouth and her airway was like constricted. Like it was
Oh
so
gosh.
obvious. And so she would always really struggle. Like she would essentially whistle when she slept. It was very odd. And so we
Oh
we
wow.
had to be on this like super long waiting list to get that surgery because that's how it is in
Did she have
Canada.
a tonsillectomy?
Yeah, so she had those removed and it's incredible. Like last night she was sleeping and I just was staring at her cuz she was silent. But before she was always snoring and you could tell she was kind of struggling. So we were always very nervous, right? Like we didn't sleep well because we were nervous about her. And now that was within the last month. It's just gone. It was amazing. Surgery happened. There was a few rough days after that because of the pain, but kids apparently bounce back pretty fast from those things. So within
Yeah.
2 weeks, she was totally fine. And now
Nice.
she breathes so well. It's incredible. But
Yeah, they
yeah,
say that's really rough for if adults have to get that done. Like it's a miserable like
yeah,
healing
my cousin
process.
had it at 19. He said it was like 3 months of terror. It was
Ugh.
horrible. Yeah, he said it was so
Eating ice
painful.
cream for every meal, basically. Yeah,
Yeah, he said he
it's
would drink
tough.
cold milk just to have any little bit of relief.
Oh, that's so tough. That's so tough. Yeah, but I mean, gaming as a dad now. I mean, he's still 5 months old, but I'm really looking forward to once he's getting older and is able to get involved in some of like my hobbies and the stuff that I like. I always joke, I'm like, he's gonna grow up and not care about Pokemon. He's gonna like love sports, which I don't know anything about sports, and it's gonna be like, hey dad, the game's on. And I'm be like, what game? Like, what are you talking about? So I'm really hoping he has the same interest as me. But if not, like
Oh, he
that's okay. I'll take him to
probably
the
will.
baseball game if he wants to
I
go.
I was always worried because I have two daughters, right? And I was always worried that I wouldn't be able to connect with my daughters as much as I would if I had a son. And I thought, oh, they're just gonna like my wife, and I'm just gonna be the guy that carries the bags and pays for everything. So I was
Yeah.
always worried that we just wouldn't have any shared interests. But it turns out that they probably like the stuff I like far more than the stuff that my wife enjoys right now. Like my wife is, she was a basketball player. She coaches basketball, and I like sports too. But I'm a huge nerd. I like video games and I like Pokemon and those kinds of things. And my wife knows almost nothing about it. So when my daughters are now like, okay, do you know what Pokemon this is? And they're like talking to me about it. I actually think that's why my wife went and made this big leap to try to learn it, is because she can see how excited they are by these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite special. And oh, to touch on something you said earlier with, like when do people see their kids? I started my PhD program last year and I was essentially living away from home for long periods of time. And I was really, I knew it was a temporary sacrifice, that it was going to be a year, maybe two, like that, where I was away from the family a lot, like maybe 7 days at a time sometimes, or at minimum 4 days at a time. So I wasn't there for
Mm-hmm.
bedtime. I wasn't there ever. And I was just so nervous about how that would impact them. And my daughter this morning, she said, Dad, I'm so glad that you're back from the city. And I said, oh, what makes you say that? And she's like, well, I just like that you get to spend time with us now. And I like when we have our daddy daughter dates. It's amazing
Oh.
how impactful these little things are for them. Like I started doing daddy daughter dates with my daughters. I took them to a restaurant, little Italian place, like a local place, and we just got a pizza. And they tell everyone that it's their favorite pizza place. So as
Oh.
they get older, you get to cherish these little moments where they have really great memories and they think about all the little things that you do and say and those moments that you have with them. And I think that's part of what makes your content so compelling for me when I'm watching you at a booth and a 6-year-old comes up to you, and as a dad to a 5-year-old, I like, okay, well that could be me, right? With my kid. And you make that, inside out core memory moment happen for them, right? Where they're like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest card ever. And it doesn't have to be a card that has immense monetary value. It's just something meaningful to them. They have that core moment. Their parents right there. They're like, and you always hear the parents say, what do you say? Right. And they'll remember that forever. Like it's just such a special moment, and a moment that not only does the kid get, but I don't think a lot of times people realize that the parent is a part of that interaction a lot of the time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
helping bond them with their kid. And that is so cool.
Yep.
So cool.
It's It's so interesting too, because I come across so many people who it's like the parents are very into the hobby too, right? They've grown up with Pokemon, they love Pokemon, and their kids are into it. But I've also come across so many families where it's like the parents are, because I'll be talking to the kid and be asking about that, and then I'll ask parents like, oh, so like, are you guys into this as well? Like, who are your parents? Are like, we're just here for him. Like, we don't. They won't say it like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
But they're like they're helping supporting their child who has this interest. And I can't imagine as someone like, let's fast forward to 10 years from now, right? My son is 10 years old and maybe he asked me about something I've never even heard of. And he's like, hey, there's this big event coming up, right? And there's going to be hundreds of people there and you have to buy tickets. And I'd really like to go. And being a parent that supports that is just awesome. And I love seeing the families that are like that, where they might have one child and the whole family is out at this card show. The parents might know nothing about Pokemon or cards or anything, but they're there because their son or daughter was like, I'm really into this thing and I know about this event, or the parent knows that their child's into it and they've chosen to take it's like, hey, we're going to this card show because I know you're going to like it. And I love seeing that sort of thing. So I hope that I'm the parent like that, regardless of what little Coop's hobbies end up being.
well, I think a lot of parents, at least one of my biggest concerns for my kids wouldn't necessarily be what the hobby is, but what it means to be a part of that hobby, right? Like if I look at a hobby and I'm like, ooh, maybe that's a place where maybe it's not so friendly for kids, or you get that impression based on certain content creators. Like I would argue that a lot of gaming spaces have a negative perception, largely because the content creators might not be very PG or whatever, and it's totally fine to make that content and whatever. But if your 11-year-old comes up to you and they want to buy tickets to this thing to go meet this content creator, and you're the parent, you're like, well, I better investigate this, and you're like, ooh, right? Like, I don't know, is this the right thing for them to do?
Right.
But when you have content creators for Pokemon that are just spreading kindness and doing good things, and the parent goes, well, I need to check this out, and that's what they see, then they go, okay, I can get behind that because it's teaching my kid good values. It's perhaps giving them lessons in economics to some extent with,
I mean, nowadays, yeah.
Work. Yeah. I think that's a positive thing. And so even if you don't necessarily get it, or you're not really into it or whatever, you can respect the good that comes out of being a part of a community like that, and the good mentors or influences that are associated with the hobby. Like I love going to board game conventions because there's this sense of belonging and community where like everyone can do this, everyone can play this game. And I've always thought that that was really special. And that's part of why I like going to like board game cafes. You walk in there and everyone's like, let's play, right? And I think you get kind of a similar vibe in the Pokemon community. I went to like a local show actually because, my wife's always watching this stuff now, and my daughters are really into it. So I took both my daughters to just like really, like I'm in a city of like 100,000 people. So it's really, really small, right? And so we went and there was a guy there, and he had on like a full out Pikachu like onesie, and he had his own little stall, right? And we went by, and we were just walking by, and he can see I'm, dragging my two kids, right? Two daughters, and they want to stop at everything and talk about Pokemon to everyone who will listen. And he's like, oh, would they want a free card? And it was funny because I immediately thought of you. I'm like, this is something Coop would totally do. So he sees the struggling dad pulling two daughters through, and this guy's like, hey, like, what's your favorite Pokemon? He just starts talking to my two girls, and my one daughter's like Eevee, and the other's like Squirtle. And so he goes in and he pulls out like a Squirtle card and an Eevee card and gives it each to them. And then I turn and I notice that he is live streaming too. And and I'm like, hey, like, are you a content creator? What's going on? And he explains that, that's what he does, and he really loves it and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's really neat. And so we ended up, I was like, let's do something then. So I bought a pack from him, and we opened the pack on stream and whatever. But it's just, those are core moments. Like, it just is so family friendly. it makes me proud to go to things like that because I know that my kids will remember it and they'll remember the lessons of generosity and of giving back. And those are always lessons I'm trying to instill. We were kind of joking before the podcast about we'd delve into finance stream, but I always teach my girls about how to use money. So how to give, how to save, and how to spend. And, giving is such an important component of that. And being at these Pokemon events, seeing content like yours, I think that teaches them about the art of giving and generosity as well.
Yep, absolutely. It's funny because we talk about like family friendly events and stuff like that. And what I've been somewhat struggling with recently has been Twitch raiding because I'm trying to raid like after my Twitch streams. And I'm like, I don't know who's safe to
It's
raid,
true.
right?
It's really
Because
hard.
I've made mistakes in the past where it's like I've rated someone and the first thing they say is "holy," and they
Yeah.
go off on a tangent about they're excited, but it's in not so family friendly language, right? And so it's like that's something I'm like trying to figure out how to navigate a little bit. Not that everyone has their own community, but I think sending mine somewhere, I have to be a little more cognizant of where they're landing. And so I'm trying to figure out like I think in order to address it, I've got to follow more people who I have kind of spent time watching. Because a lot of times, like I don't have how there's like a sidebar. It's like people you watch show up if they're live, and a lot of times I'll just go to a section and start scrolling through and be like, well, I have no idea if this person is quote unquote family friendly or PG or not. So,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to navigate that a little bit better too.
Are you?
Because you're not as live as often as I'd like, Sneb. I'm trying to send
Yeah.
my folks over there.
It's hard because like I don't really cuss very much and those kinds of things, but every once in a while I do a little bit, or people that I bring onto my stream might, and I'm not particularly bothered by it, but I recognize that there's all kinds of different creators and all kinds of different sort of what's the word, like sort of a presence or theme that you want to portray. And so it is quite challenging. There's a creator. This is something I've been thinking about doing. There's a creator named Cypher PK. I don't know if you know who that is. Fortnite guy.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a Fortnite guy,
sure.
and I actually really like what he does. So he has 2 different color schemes for his stream. He has kind of like the Cypher at night and Cypher at day. And so what happens is if he has a certain color theme going on, that's his family friendly, like he's making content for YouTube for the kids, so to speak. And if he's Cypher at night, which I think was like his more like purple theme, this could be way outdated, but you knew that it was kind of like okay to cuss on a stream, like it was for a different crowd. And that I thought was a really unique way to do it because he was essentially saying, look, I am who I am, but there are also times that I have standards for my audience or whatever. And I just thought that was a good way to do it. But it is tricky. Like I've made mistakes too. You raid the wrong person. It's content or something that you're like, whoa, I'm a little uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
It is
Whoopsie
tricky.
daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually you just kind of have to have a good laugh about it and move on.
Yeah. And just like, hit and miss, right? It's the internet. So, but yeah, I think the big thing too about events, it's like, and when I first started vending shows, even, before I went viral or started really like focusing on content, it's like, even though I wasn't making money buying and selling, it was just fun to spend a Saturday like just around a bunch of people who like the same thing that I like. And there's just something about that immediate connection with people that it's like we're all here because we all like Pokemon, or we're all here because we play the same video game, right? Or whatever convention you go to. And it just makes it easy to talk with people. I'm horrible at small talk, right? And so if I'm just like meeting friends of friends or meeting, or if like I'm hanging out with my wife's friends and it's like they don't care about the things I enjoy, it's like, what are we talking about? Like current events,
Sounds
politics.
exactly
Like,
like me.
I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. So I love events.
Is your
I
wife
love
the talker?
conventions. Say that again.
Is your wife the talker? Like, is she the social
She's
one?
she's the social one. I'm very introverted, which is funny because now I do very extroverted things, which is go to conventions. But yeah, I'm very much introverted. If we're doing something social, it's probably because Lauren has signed us up to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much like me and my wife. Like, I'm just along for the ride. Anything that happens, and like we'll go to things, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like silent, and I'm just her supportive supportive husband, and she's just doing all the talking to a million people. And it is hard for me too. Like I feel like I have nothing to talk about with some people, right? Like, so when you are around people that all share the same, it's exactly how I feel when I go to the Guild Wars 2 meetups. It's crazy. Like everyone there, you're all just like united by this bond of that one thing. And I imagine that's exactly how it is with all things Pokemon.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
So
cool.
what other games are you playing? I know you played WoW Classic during the OnlyFans stuff.
Yeah, I've
Obviously
been
Guild Wars
grinding
2. Are you
IRL
playing
mostly.
any say that again?
I've been grinding IRL mostly, but
Oh yeah. I can't
yeah,
imagine being in a PhD program. I mean, it's
well,
plus
yeah,
having kids and
the last 6 months were crazy, 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 crazy. Um, yeah, I traveled to the UK. I actually met up with MightyTeapot there. I went to
I saw that. I saw one of the streams where you guys were running or something,
yeah, it
exercising.
was
I
super
tuned
good.
in for a couple minutes, but
We're going to do a half marathon next year, so I really am on the grind. I'm starting training for that,
nice.
which is good. I have a 5K that I'm going to do in a few weeks, another 5K in September. So I'm trying to build some endurance and stamina and just get in better shape in general. But with other games, honestly, I'm kind of weird. I just play a lot of old games. So I've been playing a lot of Warcraft 3 off stream. It's one of my favorite
Okay.
games of all time. Obviously, I've played World of Warcraft a bit. I logged into old school RuneScape yesterday just because there's a lot of hype around that right now with all the WoW people
Nice.
playing. So I just wanted to see what was up. Play a little bit of Guild Wars 1 here and there and a lot of Guild Wars 2. But with it being summer and with my daughter about to go into kindergarten and, all the IRL stuff, I've just been mostly doing work around my house and other little things. I feel like I'm a bit boring when it comes to games lately, but yeah, that's kind of me.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know the exact statistic, but there was something where it's like 80% of Steam game hours were on games that were like 20 years old or something. Again, I don't know the exact statistic, but it was something like that. So it's really interesting. And I don't know if it's like people our age that we just lean more into like more nostalgic things that are comfortable for us as opposed to like the hyper modern video games. I have heard really good things about Claire Obscura Expedition 33, so I just bought that, which I'm hoping to play. I think I'm going to try to stream it. I don't know how well like super heavy story dialogue games do like while streaming because you're sitting there, you're watching a cutscene a lot. So I'm gonna give it a shot, and if it doesn't resonate, I'll just play it off stream. But I've heard really, really good things about that as like a single player RPG. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I lean back on older games that I played in my early teens or even older, right? Like fire up an emulator and play Pokemon Red and Fire Red and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not as invested in like I hate to say trying new things, trying newer games because I like to just fall back on. I know I'm going to enjoy a playthrough of X, Y, or Z. You know.
It's funny that this topic has come up. Oh, I do want to just check. You're still good to continue. I know we've been going for about an hour and a half. So if you've
I'm
got a
good.
hard,
Yeah, I'm good
okay, I'm
until
good
probably
too.
about three. Yeah, another like 50-ish minutes. I'm good.
Okay,
But
yeah,
yeah, I
I've
can stop
got
whenever
I've got
too.
another
So
half an hour or so too. So we're good
okay.
then. Um, it's really interesting. This topic fascinates me. The idea that so many people play older games, and why is it that we play older games? And funny enough, this is the kind of question that's a kind of like a research question that I might ask in my PhD. Why is it that consumers feel more connected to games that are older? Why? And how, like what are the mechanisms at play there psychologically? So I actually approached my PhD supervisor and I said, "Hey," and he's a bit of a gamer too. And I just said, "Hey, I think it's really interesting how people go to older games, and I think it's because of monetization systems." So
Mm,
my hypothesis with this, it's not very fleshed out yet, just for all the researchers that are about to jump on me about it. It's not very fleshed out yet, but just some kind of thoughts are I think what's going on is that there's this concept called persuasion knowledge. It's this idea that people can be aware that they're being persuaded or being sold to. And this is particularly relevant in sales and advertising marketing in general, right? If people know that you're trying to sell them stuff all the time, their attitude toward you and whatever you're selling often goes down. Like they'll have a more negative outlook.
Yeah.
People don't like being sold to. It makes them uncomfortable, puts them on the spot, whatever. And when I think about monetization systems and things in modern games, they're very in your face. They sort of break the immersion of the game. And in my view, they sort of break the integrity of what it means to be a part of the game. If you get to a point where a thing flashes up and it says there's a sale where you can buy X number of things in the gem store, that happens somewhat often in Guild Wars, then you don't feel like you're a part of the world as much. Whereas when I play Guild Wars 1, it's totally different. Nothing aside from the login screen has anything for sale. There's nothing like that really, unless you go very specifically to the bonus mission pack place. It's like, oh, you need to buy this to continue. But everything else, it's like a traditional ad. It's not like the game developers thought, okay, well, we need to incorporate like an interesting way to include this in the lore, but then, give them a link to go buy it if that's what they want to do. It's like, no, this is a very separate thing. This is taking you away from the game. So it's really my belief that people are attracted to these old games because they are more connected to them because they're not constantly interrupted by persuasion knowledge. They're not constantly, there's no constant sales force in your face.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different components there. I think you're spot on. I think if there is any sort of nostalgia, that's going to win over 9 times out of 10, right? If it's a game you played growing up and have a very fond memory of, it's so easy to go play it again. I think where we get into an interesting conversation is if it's an old game you've never played before. If you're not reliving nostalgia and you're preferring to go play something from the 90s or even the early 2000s, the question becomes, is it because game design philosophy was just really different back then? And I think it was. I think the microtransactions, the always online, the just design choices in general have shifted pretty heavily from even in the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years, right? I think older games are very accessible. It's very easy to emulate any older system nowadays. Well, I say that there's still technical components to some of like PS3, PS, whatever, right? But I think if you want to go play old Game Boy games, old Game Boy Advance games, old whatever, it's very easy to access those. Whereas hyper modern games, if you're not, buying the most recent console, if you're not upgrading a gaming PC and spending a bunch of money to do that, it can be difficult to access the more modern games, which are becoming pretty bloated. I mean, some games are hundreds of gigabytes just to install on your computer, right? And so being able to go download a 20 megabyte ROM and getting 40 hours of enjoyment out of is very accessible for a lot of people too. And so I think there's a couple different components that you can think about when people shift back. But I do think nostalgia is a huge one. And that's a big one for me is most of the old games I play, it's because I played them before. I played them as a kid. I loved them. Golden Sun on Game Boy Advance is one of my favorite games of all time. And I'll go and play through that because I remember going to Target with my mom, having her drive me there as a kid and buying it on Game Boy Advance, opening the box and reading the game manual as much as I could on the ride home, right? Because I'm just like, I want to play this game. So
Core memory.
That's a big thing for me. It's like I play old games because I played them and I loved them and I want to keep reliving that time and time again.
I loved Tactics,
but I do
Final Fantasy Tactics. Oof, that was a good
I
game.
never played Tactics.
Oh,
I never played it.
I don't know if it holds up as well today, but it is such a good game. It's very slow in a sense, but it's very fun. Very fun.
Yeah.
There's like a summoner class or something that you could get at one point. That's what I remember, and you could do some like really interesting things. Oh, there's a remaster coming, says the chat. Ooh, very interesting.
There's a remaster. If you've never played, there's a game, it's called Suikoden 1 and 2. There's an HD remaster. Those are two of my favorite RPGs. They're phenomenal. I'm a sucker for like just 2D RPGs. Like that's probably my favorite like genre. Genre's the RPG, but artistic style is kind of that 2D pixel art sort of thing. So yeah, check out Suikoden 1 and 2.
It's funny. I mean, as I kind of described, I don't play a ton of games. I feel like I don't play that many games anymore, but I kind of went through, there was kind of a lull in Guild Wars 2, so I was kind of just going back and playing random things. And it really sort of reinvigorated my love and passion for gaming in general, and just finding sort of joy in just doing something, even if you weren't the best at it or whatever. I think sometimes if you stream and you play a lot of one game and you get kind of good at that game, you become like, it becomes like kind of tied to your identity to be like really good or whatever, or everything has to be for content, or everything has to be entertaining.
So I just stay bad at games. That makes it easy for me.
Just stay bad and you'll never have that problem. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even really that good at Guild Wars or anything, but when I go try a completely new game, I am really bad. And so there is a bit of a juxtaposition there. I suppose it's just, there's a lot of just pure joy in just playing a game and exploring it for the first time. It's just pure fun. And I think that's such a cool part of gaming in general. I kind of miss the childhood days of loading up the Nintendo 64 or the GameCube or the SNES or whatever, and just playing some old game with my friend for the first time. Like some of my core memories. Okay, this one, I used to go to my friend's house and we'd have a sleepover and we would play Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. Resident Evil 4 remains one of my favorite games of all time, and I can remember like particular moments from it because they were so scary to us when we were so little. Oh man, yeah, like there's this one part with a boat. Have you played Resident Evil 4?
I haven't. I never played a Resident Evil game. I know.
I don't know if that's a stream game or not because it's pretty scary and everything, but it's, oh man. There's like a part with a boat where you like go onto this lake and then there's like something in the water and it like grabs onto the anchor and it's like pulling you around the lake and it's like gonna kill you, right? And
I got anxiety just you describing it to me.
It's so scary. And there's this other boss where you're like in a cave, like on an old train or something, and you're walking around and you have a flashlight and a handgun, and you can like hear stuff, and you have to do this in the game or you can't continue. You have to look up and you see this like giant spider scorpion demon thing hanging on the ceiling, and you have to like shoot it down. And if you don't identify this on the ceiling, it just drops down, breaks your neck, and it's over. And then you have to restart.
Oh my gosh. You are dead.
It's really scary.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah. Someone just mentioned Halo in my chat, and I was like, that's something I really miss. Like my buddies and I playing through Halo on legendary difficulty and just playing through the campaign. And I know you can kind of find that online nowadays, but there was just something about like getting some snacks, hanging out at a buddy's house, and playing through a campaign together on Xbox or on whatever, right? Yeah. You know, whether it's Resident Evil 4 on GameCube or if it's playing Super Smash Bros. And yes, you can find online communities. You can stream together and you can play the same game, but it's not the same through the screen, you know? And I miss that a lot.
I think that's why people like content creators that do like Let's Plays and playthroughs, because it reminds them of that moment. But you're right, it isn't quite the same. And it's very interesting to me that games used to bring us together a lot more, and they still do. But when I look at games, like modern games, modern MMOs in particular, I feel like modern MMOs have pulled a lot away from some of the more social aspects toward kind of leaning towards this, like you're all together, but you're all your own individual too. It's like it wants you to know that socialization is optional and very optional, but just the notion that other people are around you is usually enough to excite people, but there's no like forced socialization. And I actually, this might be unpopular, but I kind of liked the forced socialization. I kind of liked having to be like, hey everyone, I am actually totally helpless unless you help me kill this spider. There's nothing I can do. And that used to be like really fun. And I mean, you brought it up earlier, like the Luxon and Kurzik factions, the faction wars in Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars factions. That was such a big deal. It was forced socialization though. Because if you wanted
Yeah.
to own a town, you needed a guild, you needed an alliance, you needed to do faction farming with other people. There was no other way to realistically accomplish that unless you were
Yep.
working with other people. Granted, there are like different faction farms you can do now solo, but at the time it was very much a social experience to do fast farming.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
interesting
yeah,
just the difference between like when we started playing World of Warcraft Classic, right? Like
yeah,
when I started playing that for the first time and I was doing a quest and I was like, what do you mean I have to team up with someone because it's like an elite mob? You mean I have to
yeah,
like find people to do this with? I can't just do it on my own. Which coming from Guild Wars 2, where it's like I don't remember the last time I was just in a party, right? Like I've done instance content, strikes and raids and all that, but it's like if you're in the open world, you might not even type on your keyboard for your whole gameplay session, right?
yeah.
And
There are
so,
people that have never joined a guild, have never joined a party, never joined a squad that are playing Guild Wars, and that's totally cool. But it's just such an
yeah,
interesting cultural difference compared to years and years and years ago. You'd never play games like that, really. Like you could. I feel like MMOs were like the dating sites or whatever before dating sites. They were just ways to socialize. There were chat rooms effectively, right? They were just ways you could
no,
go and just talk to people, and sort of the game was almost an aside, especially games like RuneScape and stuff. You just kind of log in to socialize. But I feel like that's less and less so all the time.
yeah. So it's definitely interesting because it's funny how much if you're someone who like suffers from social anxiety, you can still experience that like in an online MMO, right? If you feel like, oh, I have to get a group together, I have to try to like lead this group. If that's not something you're comfortable doing even in real life, that translates, right? And it can be difficult too. So I do like the aspect of that Guild Wars 2 is super accessible in that regard. Like you don't have to feel like you have to socialize with people. You can still accomplish so much stuff. But it was definitely interesting to see the flip side of that in playing WoW for the first time where it's like, okay, I've got to like shout in world like, hey, who else is working on this quest because I need more people to take down this person and stuff, which it was kind of fun to have to do that. Or randomly like just sending someone a team invite because we were both in the same cave and it's like, let's share mobs, let's work on this together sort of thing. But yeah, MMOs in general, I love it because I feel like I get my socializing as an introvert. It's like I get my socializing in by playing online with people. But yeah,
Yeah, I know. I feel exactly the same. It's interesting too because what'll happen to me is I'll like streaming. It actually it fills my sort of social thermometer, so to speak. Like I get
yeah,
my socialization and then I'm like done. It's sort of a problem sometimes because if I stream during the day and I get all that social interaction, my cup is filled, so to speak. So when my wife is like, "Let's go do this social thing," I'm like, I got kind of nothing left. Like I kind of want to like sit and like read a book or just go
yeah.
to the park and do nothing.
My wife and I say I've used up all my words for today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my
But
wife
I
is
definitely
much
feel
more
you.
interested in going and doing stuff than I am probably. She was
Yeah.
actually asking me, she was like, "Where does Coop do his things?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "The card shows. Where does he go?" Like, probably somewhere near where he lives most of the time.
Yep.
She's
Mainly
like, "Well,
Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina have been the
yeah."
big ones.
And she was like, "Oh, so we can't go." And I'm like, "No, we probably can't. It's like across the continent."
Yeah. Are you close to any? I don't know where you are in Canada. Are you close to any northern U.S. states or not really?
Yeah, I'm close to Montana. So Montana, there's not a lot going on there, right? But
Yeah,
we go
that's
to Seattle sometimes. My wife's from Idaho, so we go to Idaho quite a
okay.
bit. As far as like
Good
bigger
potatoes out there.
cities, I'm close to Calgary in Alberta. That's kind of where I'm from. There's quite a
Okay.
bit that happens in Calgary. Like they have a car show and stuff too. And they even have like a Comic Con type thing there. I forget what it's called, but they have something like that. They have a big game expo too. I actually met the guys that make that. Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, usually we travel if we're gonna go to stuff like that. The one that
Gotcha.
like my sister used to live in Texas. She used to live near Dallas, and so we used to go to Dallas a few times, and my parents have like a place in Arizona, so we like kind of near Phoenix. So we're gonna.
I'll be in Phoenix later this year.
Oh,
So,
when? That's big.
November. Oh gosh, I think Phoenix is either October 31st through November 2nd, or it's October 17th through 19th. It's one of the. So I've got two shows around that time, and Phoenix is one of them. I think Phoenix is the later one. I think that's. Oh yeah, Phoenix is October 31st through November 2nd.
That
So
would be cool.
it's called PokeCon. PokeCon
PokeCon.
2025. Yep.
Very cool. I'll put that on the list, because she actually it's so cool. Like I think this is maybe kind of weird that I'm talking about how my wife likes it so much, but it's so fascinating to me because she has just evolved in this. Like she loves it. I don't have anything near me to show you, but she's gone through all of the Pokemon binders and organized all the cards, and she's texting me, looking up the sets at work. Like she's like really into it now. It's really cool. And I actually would be very curious to see her go to something like that, just to see how she does. But I'm trying to force her to play the Pokemon games because she hasn't done that yet. And I think she's kind of like missing out, right? Like once she plays one of the Pokemon games, I think she'll kind of get it. But my wife doesn't play a lot of video games. She's played like Stardew Valley and like those kind of games. She really likes the platformer Mario games, but she doesn't really do like much else. So it'd be a shift for her for sure. Really neat.
Yeah, my wife's not a gamer either. We've played like Mario Party or Mario Kart like on the Switch, but other than that, she plays like some of the farm games on her phone. But if she's playing like a game on her iPad, it's usually like Sudoku or something like, or backgammon sort of thing. So
How did you two meet if you're not like
we
both
met
gamers or
online.
whatever?
Yeah,
Really?
online dating. Yeah, this was back. Gosh, so I was out of school. I started with Accenture, the IT consulting firm,
Yeah.
and so I was traveling. We both lived in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and I was flying from Charlotte to Chicago. I would fly out on Monday and fly back on Thursday. And so in my mind, I was like, how am I ever going to meet someone? Because I'm only in Charlotte Friday through Sunday. And then I'm not going to meet someone in Chicago because I live across the country. And so I signed up for the website was plentyoffish.com, which
Oh yeah.
years and years ago got bought by Match. I don't know. It was free at the time. I don't know I don't even know if it still exists. And I filtered by newest. So like who was new. And she was like on the first list of that. And I sent her a message. But fun story, fun fact. She ignored me the first time, and she ended up deleting her account. And then months later, she remade her account with all different photos, so I didn't recognize the account. And I still had filtered like by who was new, and sent her another message, a new message because it was a new account, right?
The moral of
And
the story is persistence is key.
it's so persistent, but it's also I didn't because it was all different photos. It's not like I saw her and was like, oh, I should try again. Because if I recognized her, I probably wouldn't have messaged her again because I'd be like, oh, this person ignored me in the past. But her profile said something like adventurous, like willing to try anything once except for skydiving or except for bungee jumping. So my first message to her was like, I guess a bungee jumping as a first date is out the window. And she thought that was just hilarious for some reason. And it'll be 10 years coming up in 2026. We've been married. But yeah, we met online. We exchanged messages for a couple of days. We met up like that following weekend. And then we hung out every single weekend until we got engaged. And then I proposed after 6 months. 6 months we
Oh,
dated.
I
Yeah.
dated my wife for 7.
Months?
So yeah, 7 months.
Nice. Well, now we had a year and a half
I'm glad
engagement.
you said that because I usually don't tell anyone because they
Oh.
usually go, what the? Right? They're like, seriously?
My dad
in only
proposed to my
7
mom
months?
after 6 weeks. And they've been married for 35 years. So I was like, well, at least I waited 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. We dated for 7.5 months. But I mean, you were engaged for a year and a half. We were not engaged for very long. We were engaged for like 5 months. We did
Okay.
like, yeah. So we had like a year turnaround. We considered, well, we essentially had a choice. We could get married that summer, or we could wait until the next summer. And we were like,
Yep.
why wait? And so we just just planned a small wedding and went with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, online dating, which is a great way. I Nowadays I have no idea. So when the apps really started to take over, I think Tinder came out the summer after I graduated college. So I barely even experienced Tinder before Lauren and I met. Um, and so I don't know what all the dating apps are like because they were kind of after my dating lifetime. Um, but I've always been a fan of online dating as a way to meet people, especially nowadays. It's like everyone is so connected online, being able to meet people. Now you have to be safe, right? There's catfish, there's stuff you got to be careful about. But yeah, I'm a big proponent, obviously, because that's how I met my wife. But yeah, we met online. She was in grad school at the time, and I was traveling, and it ended up working out. And so here we
Oh, so,
are.
so she did
So
a
yeah,
master's degree or PhD?
she did her
Both.
master's. She got her master's in healthcare administration.
Oh, that's
So
right. I
she's
think
been
you
in the
mentioned that
healthcare
before.
space for a long time. And then I got mine in engineering, like while I was working. Because it was funny, like after we got married and she had her master's, I was like, maybe I'll get mine too. Maybe I'll do that.
Double
Um,
masters.
yeah, so then I got my master's, and then I was like, okay, maybe I'll get a PhD. So I didn't get my PhD. I got into a program at Binghamton, but I ended up not pursuing it because I didn't want to quit a job and go get a PhD.
Yeah,
I
most PhDs, it's like unless you want to go into academia or there's some very particular industries where it might be valuable. It's really not. It's more of like a you just kind of want to do it because it's fun kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, but yeah, been super helpful in as a content creator. Psych. So, but it was good. I mean, I did it while I did my master's while working, so like my work paid for it. So I didn't have any additional, I didn't have any student loans, which is great. A huge boon not to have to deal with that. Um, but yeah, now I'm full-time content creator. Lauren's a full-time stay-at-home mom. So, but education, I mean, we were both in the corporate world. I was in the corporate world for going on 13 years. After her master, she did a full time master, so she went undergrad straight to masters and then got a job. So I think she was just wrapping up year 10 in the working world. So it's like we spent a decade or more using our degrees and stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm a big proponent of education. So definitely something worth pursuing. But yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about so with for context for everybody that's listening, one of the things that I research are gambling behaviors. And so I am very interested in sort of the speculative markets and how people view Pokemon as investment tools. I'm also really interested in sort of this mystery box thing or how
Mm,
Pokemon cards can be used to gamble. And so I'm curious about sort of your exposure to that, being a content creator of the Pokemon scene, and sort of like what you have seen and like what your opinions are regarding how maybe Pokemon cards are being used as a tool to exploit people through gambling behaviors as well.
yeah. It's interesting because whenever it's brought up in the space, one of the first defenses, there's a couple. The first one is like, well, Pokemon packs is already gambling. Because when you go and buy a booster pack for $5, it's a random assortment of cards. My response to that is usually that when Pokemon company creates cards, there's no secondhand market for the cards yet, right? So there's no market price. So if I go buy a $5 pack, the only person who tells me that that is more valuable than some other cards I pull is a secondary market. And there's no secondary market for like new packs. kind of a weird thread to follow. So my argument is that Pokemon packs themselves is not gambling. I would say mystery products, it is gambling. It's such a fine line, but I would say I'm in the camp where mystery products is gambling and taking advantage of people's gambling, potentially addictions. I mean, but there's so much money in it. I understand why people pursue that as an avenue of selling product. The reason why I think mystery products are gambling is because the way people set them up is a lot of times there's a let's use graded cards as an example, because I think that's a prime way to look at it. They might say is, here's a picture of 100 graded cards. I have 100 mystery packs. You will get one of the graded cards in this photo. Some of them are worth thousands of dollars and some of them are worth nothing. I've set a price point and a price floor and a price maximum. So it says it costs you, I'm just going to make up numbers. It costs you $100 to buy this mystery product. The expected value of this mystery product for you is going to be less than that $100. But if you're lucky, you'll get something worth way more than that. All right. So if you're spending money hoping to get something that the secondary market has told you is worth more than that you can sell for more than that, that's in and of itself, that's gambling, right? I'm spending money hoping to make back more money. The reason I don't like them is because in order for someone to win at mystery products, someone else has to lose, right? So there's all these people who are spending the $100 to buy that mystery pack, and they're getting product that on the secondary market is worth less than that $100. So they're losing money, essentially. Why I don't, that's the big reason I don't like mystery products. The other one is that it does take advantage. If people have a gambling addiction, mystery products are helping feed that addiction. Some people will argue it's like, well, if I'm not the one providing them with their fix, they're going to get it somewhere else. So it might as well be me, right? Where I can't sit here and argue against like your business practices, right? That's up to you how you want to sell things to people. I've come out pretty publicly and vocally against mystery products. I don't sell them myself. I don't promote them because I don't like what they stand for, and I don't like that. I want to offer a service that if someone buys it, there's a chance that they leave feeling bad, right? I don't want to be the person who provides that to them. So that's kind of where I lean on mystery products. Again, there's it's rampant just in collecting in general. Like you can make mystery bags out of whatever you want, right? Could be straight cash, could be collectibles, could be whatever, right? And I think they've become super prevalent in the collecting hobby because one, product has gotten really difficult to get. So one way to get it is through mystery products, and you're just hoping that you make your money back. And the other is people like to gamble. People like to try to make more money than they've got. So anyway, long-winded answer, but yeah, definitely against mystery products. Like I said, there's a ton of money because there's a lot of whales out there that want to spend their money on mystery products. But again, I don't necessarily. The other thing I don't like, there's a reason gambling is regulated. There's a reason there's a whole gambling regulatory body that goes into casinos and says, are your slot machines paying out at the regulated 94%, right? So what that means is for every dollar spent on a slot machine, that slot machine has to pay out 94 cents. Now, that's over billions of iterations, but it's still a statistical regulated payout. So if you had an infinite amount of time and money, you would only lose 6 cents to the dollar if you gambled forever. Mystery products aren't regulated. No one is auditing these mystery products. If a big streamer or a big whoever is selling mystery products and says, hey, every 100 mystery packs has a vintage pack in it that's worth $1,000, there's no one saying whether or not that's true. And there's no way to validate that those claims are true. So you have potentially big influential people in the hobby that could, I'm not saying they are, that could take advantage of their audiences without any repercussions. And I don't, it's just such a gray area. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So
Yeah.
if I ever start selling mystery products, guys, like, hold me accountable.
I'll let you know. I'll remind you of this conversation if that ever happens. One thing I think that is particularly pernicious about this is that when it comes to things like mystery packs, there's this concept in gambling called losses disguised as wins. So if you think about this from a slot machine perspective, you put in $1, you pull the lever, you get 75 cents. The machine is like, winner, 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 right? And you're like, holy brain juices, I feel great. I'm going to pull the lever again. Right? Like that's kind of a funny way to put it, but that's really what's going on. It makes you feel like you've won. And when it comes to mystery packs, that's the idea. Everyone is a winner, kind of, but it's a loss disguised as a win. You're actually losing most of the time when you play those sorts of mystery pack kind of games, but you don't feel that way necessarily all the time, unless it was particularly egregiously bad. But my understanding is that a lot of the mystery packs try to make it so that it's just good enough to where you'd probably be like when I hear people talk about it, like, oh, I think it's like pretty good value. Like maybe I overpaid a little bit. Maybe it was $100, but I got $75 worth of value. So that they feel like that a lot of the time, but it's a loss. So in effect, they're being taken advantage of in a way. Maybe they consent to that, they subscribe to it, whatever. When this sort of element of gambling is combined with the power of an influencer, that's where I think this starts to get really scary, because you can justify these things. Like if you were all of a sudden able to go and, open your own mystery pack business, people would buy it purely because you endorsed it. They would buy it because they trust you. And you can effectively weaponize that trust. You can get people to do things that they might actually be morally opposed to, because they go, well, I know Coop's a good guy, or whoever's a good guy. Clearly, this should be okay then. That's really alarming, because all of these creators can then go out and make a bucket load of money, and like you said, completely unregulated, through using losses disguised as wins. That freaks me out a little bit.
A lot of times, like, even the value you're getting when you lose it's like junk value. And I'll describe it in a way. It's like, okay, so using the graded cards as an example, right? I spent $100 on this mystery pack. I got a graded card worth $60, but it's a junk card that no one actually really wants. And so I'm not actually going to be able to sell it for $60. Even though the market value is 60, can I actually recoup those $60? Probably not. And so it's almost like you said, losses disguised as wins is one aspect. The other, it's like the value I'm selling you, while it's kind of true, it's almost not, because I'm offloading things that I can't even sell or no one really wants, but it has some value. So it's like just another negative aspect of it. It's just I don't know if I don't want to get too like I'm into like what I would consider like what's scummy and what's not, but I think if you're a large influencer and you are hawking a product that leads to people losing money, why? Like, why do you feel the need to do that outside of like you just want to make money for yourself? So I think there are ways to run a successful, profitable business without having to resort to helping people gamble, winning by letting others lose, especially if you have a big platform to do that. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it gets even more murky when we start to talk about like breaking and what that means. Because there's one thing, like my understanding is you do a lot of like the like community giveaways and stuff. I think that's very different than I watch the people where they buy into a random break. I see this particularly with sports cards, so I don't know how much it translates to Pokemon. But what'll happen is a big sports card content creator that has a live stream will buy like $1,000 in product, and then I'll give the NBA as an example. There's 30 teams in the NBA. They will auction off each team on eBay. And so
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, okay, any player that has a New York Knicks jersey on, that's what you're bidding on. So these people have no idea. Like they could get the best thing in the world, or they could get nothing. And these are extremely profitable,
Mm-hmm.
especially because product is harder and harder to get. And then there's this really interesting thrill. This is something that I'm trying. I have a project that's coming up in the fall that I want to examine this from a psychological perspective. There's sort of this thrill of like, not only am I opening and getting the card, but somebody who I admire or respect, i.e. the influencer, is opening it for me on behalf of me in front of an audience, which it might be your
Mm-hmm.
community, your friends, and they're celebrating that. So there's sort of this like euphoria that somebody experiences when
Yeah.
the big card gets pulled, and they really want to be a part of that. And I think again that does play into sort of the gambling bit a little, but that again, those elements combining are very interesting in this collectible space, whether it's sports card or Pokemon. It does raise a lot of concerns about the ethics and lack of regulation around these sort of underground industries.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these like live auction platforms, a lot of the streamers on them, they're basically running gambling carnival games. You're
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you're not even buying a product. You're like buying the chance to win a product. I've seen something called like duck races where it's like you pay $5 and you get a duck and there's 20 other people with ducks and you're all racing to the end and the winner gets, $100 item, right? So you spend $5 for nothing and the streamer gets $500 for $100 product. And it's like, okay,
Oh,
so we're all just,
jeez.
are we just all illegally gambling? I don't know what's going on
I really
anymore.
think that's what's going on, but it's so interesting because I don't think people really think about it like that, right? They don't. I think the average person, if you told them this was going on, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Right? Like
Yeah.
that's so random and strange.
Yeah. It's a weird landscape. I think the breaks. I mean, the breaks translate to Pokemon. I've done a break or two in the like over the last year. I don't really like breaks very often. I do a ton of like giveaways, which is awesome to like everyone's just like celebrating together. No money's being exchanged. And I've done some. I've done like two or three like box breaks where it's like I'm just selling the pack. I'm opening it for you. I can see the
Yeah,
draw to that if you really like the streamer and there's that community aspect. Like everyone in
yeah.
chat is like getting hype up if there are good polls for whoever's pack it is.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't
Um,
necessarily have a problem if people are like just selling the pack and then opening it for them and doing that. I think where it gets weird is when people inject the gambling into it, where they're like, you have a chance at me opening this pack for you. Like, imagine if it was like, I have a first edition base set pack, or I have some modern Destined Rivals pack, and you're gonna buy into this, and you have a 1 in 100 chance of getting the first edition pack or something that's like less than a fourth of what you paid me. That's when I think things start to get a little bit like, I don't know, is that gambling? Right? Like it gets a little bit iffy.
yeah, I'm almost like, whatever happened to just like, hey guys, I'm selling a PSA 10 Pikachu, right? Like the auction's
Yeah.
starting now. Like go ahead and bid. Like it seems like that's just fallen to the wayside. To everyone's just gambling. Everyone's playing these games and it's like maybe you win, maybe you lose. I mean, the streamer's winning. They're making buku bucks. I don't
Yeah.
know. And it's not any platform's fault. I mean, the platform's only as good as its users. So I don't know. It's just a weird time. I mean, I've been in the Pokemon collecting hobby since 2018, which is a lot shorter than a lot of people. Um, and I mean, I remember distinctly pre-COVID, going into Target and the Pokemon section is just overflowing with product. Like being sold out of Pokemon cards was not a thing. And nowadays it's like, is the only way I can get product if I go on to insert platform here and gamble on some streamer that's got a bunch of the newest set. It's like, is Pokemon scarce, or have all of the gambling games made it scarce because whatever platform streamers are like, I got to go get a ton of product so I can run this stuff, run my streams, because I stream every day, Monday through Friday. I don't know. I don't know if it's a self-induced issue because of where a lot of people in the hobby have gone, but it's weird, man. It's real weird.
Yeah, my hope is that at some point this will get more attention and it'll be regulated in some way. And it's interesting because I'm all for like free market economy and whatever, but I do believe it's important to have some level of order and regulation to things to protect ourselves and to protect the youth. And one of those things is certainly gambling. Gambling is like it's a big part of my research, right? I look at these things all the time, and it scares me because gambling is related to comorbid with things like domestic violence, with assault, with illicit drug use, and with other financial crimes or violent crimes. Gambling is like in and around a lot of these things that are very, very harmful, not only to oneself, but to one's family or to the public. And if we don't do something about that, then all these other things inadvertently are also affected, right? More people will succumb to alcoholism or have problems with illicit drugs or will have familial issues. It's related to divorce, right? There's just so many issues that come from gambling. And although there's sort of like the traditional gambling, we're seeing like go to the casino, slots, whatever. You're now seeing more and more of people getting very addicted to the online games, or like loot boxes in a video game. Or I've seen people on online forums saying, I need help for my addiction. Like I spend all this money on card breaks. I can't stop. Like, I don't know how to stop now. And I don't think anyone talks about those things because they're kind of new. And my hope is that eventually people will realize that this is actually a real problem that real people suffer with, and that there's maybe something that we can do to support them.
Yeah, I mean, every lottery and gambling has to have, at least in the United States, has to have an advert at the end that says, if you or a loved one struggle with addiction to gambling, call this helpline. And I'm so curious if anyone is calling that hotline about trading cards nowadays.
Oh, they
because
are.
I truly think that there could be just as big of a pitfall as going to a casino, playing blackjack, doing what the traditional gambling games, as there is currently in and not just Pokemon, it's like sports, any collectible item that has a secondary market that you can try to spend less than the value on to win is going to lead to that. But it's crazy. But I say all that to not to downplay it, but like as humans, like we can abuse anything, like whether it's food, whether it's gambling, whether it's whatever, like people struggle with such a gambit of things, right? And gambling in the collectible hobby is just one pitfall that we as people can fall into. So long story short, I'm trying to do my part not to help people succumb to that, by not offering any sort of gambling or mystery type of products and not promoting them. Um, it's weird because at the end of the day too, like if I'm on the side of the street and saying, "Hey, want to play like this cup shuffle game?" Right? If you're walking by, like it's your decision whether or not you decide to take part in that. But it's almost like, but on the flip side, it's like if you have an issue and an addiction, like you can't just say no, right? So we have to remove the opportunity to help you. So
or at least
it's a very
caution and warn
complicated
people,
issue, right? Yep.
Yeah, gambling it's particularly difficult because there are so many different kinds of gambling, and like imagine it's really hard for people to come forward and admit they have a gambling problem. Typically, it's very embarrassing, right? And it's very secretive because there aren't really like the same level of physiological symptoms, right? Like if you're an alcoholic, right, it may or may not be embarrassing, but it's just very evident that it's happening. So you're sort of forced to confront it. If you have a
Yep.
gambling problem, then you might have like invisible issues, right? Like you're like, I don't have any money for food this month, right?
Well,
And now
and
I have to go and like figure that out, right?
so many, and I don't want to say it's like a gender thing, but so many men's identities are tied to their financial worth
Hmm.
that it's very difficult for a guy, and I'm sure women too, to admit like I've lost so much money gambling. If I'm tying my worth or my value or my identity to have I been successful financially, having to admit I haven't been, I can't even imagine the difficulty that comes with that. And so finding help for gambling addiction, I could see as such a huge hurdle to have to get over that admission phase.
It takes so much courage, so much bravery to do that too. It is so challenging to admit there's an issue, especially like you kind of alluded to this, but men actually are disproportionately affected by gambling relative to women. That's not to say that women are not affected. Many women are affected when it comes to gambling addiction and such. When it comes to sports betting, for example, men are overwhelmingly the majority of gambling participants, like overwhelmingly with sports betting. And maybe somewhat surprisingly, but also maybe not, young, white, affluent men are the most likely to engage in sports betting in particular. So you have this demographic who, maybe traditionally you think it's like a vulnerable person that's going to the casino a lot, right? That person might be like middle class, socioeconomically speaking, or whatever. But now there's this whole level of like, okay, now basically a bunch of young rich kids are really getting into this, and it's troublesome because it's so normalized and like so ingrained into the culture of sport now. I would make an argument that the same thing is happening, but to the collectible industry. And
Mm-hmm.
this should raise some huge alarm bells, because what's happened the last 7 years to sports is every 5 seconds you're exposed to a gambling ad when you're watching sports now. Every 5 seconds.
When they legalized it in the state that I live in, oh my, it's crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
every
And I
five
understand
seconds.
like the lobbying is like, think about all the economic growth you're going to see by getting the whatever, right? And it's like, is that what you want to build? You want to build your society on the backs of people's gambling addictions?
Yeah,
It's
that's
sad.
really what they
It's
do
so
say
sad.
though. Yeah, it's a
It's like, oh my
huge
gosh, my state's
problem.
doing so well because we have just reaped the rewards of people of
Like
gambling addiction. It's like,
to me, it's reverse Robin Hooding people. Like
yeah,
rather than steal from the rich and take and give to the poor, it's like you're taking often from the poor and giving to the poor. Like, I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's a
yeah.
little bit odd. But it's not just affecting sort of these most vulnerable populations that maybe people think now. It's affecting everyone. It is so it is ever present everywhere. It's
Yeah.
ubiquitous. You
Yeah.
see it everywhere, and it affects every kind of person: men, women, young, old. And it's because gambling has taken so many different forms now. And so the reason I bring all of this up is I just think it's so fascinating right now watching what's happening with Pokemon cards, with Magic the Gathering cards, with sports cards. And I got into sports cards in like 2019, and I've just watched how this hobby has evolved into nothing but speculation investing and gambling and breaking, and it's very odd. And I think Pokemon, it has some of that too, and that we ought to be careful with that and cautious.
Yeah. The one
Yeah.
thing we didn't touch on, so I don't invest in Pokemon. I
Mm.
collect Pokemon. I've lucked out that what I like and what I collected years ago has grown in value, but Pokemon is not a portfolio for me. It's not a part of my retirement plan. It's not a part of my investing strategy. It's not a part of my diversification. It's something that has just naturally grown in value because I've collected the things I liked. And over time, a lot more people have decided they like those same things. So I'm not buying product. I'm not sticking it in my closet and hoping in 5, 10, 15 years it's worth a bunch of money. I've never recommended Pokemon as an investment vehicle. If that's something you're interested in doing, like by all means, I would say if you're someone who wants to invest in Pokemon, it should be after you have fully funded a 401k retirement account or met a company match or all of your traditional retirement investment vehicles, which I think it's tough for younger people to buy into nowadays because, and I don't know how much time. I think we're getting down to the wire here on timing too, because I'd love to have like a full financial discussion with you too, Sneb. But I think younger generations are seeing the writing on the wall of the economic turmoil we've experienced, around the world over the last few years. And as a millennial, going through 3 once in a lifetime economic collapses hasn't been the most fun thing to do. And it almost feels like gambling feels like the quick way out. And as someone who might be 18 or 19 and they're like, you mean I got to work for the next 50 years and I might still not be able to retire? All right, time to gamble and hope for the best because the alternative sucks too. So I can understand the draw of like, I'm going to put it all on red or I'm going to put it all on Pikachu and hope for the best.
Put it all on Frog Coin 1, 2, 3.
Because what's the worst case scenario? I still have to go work for 60 years. Well, I was going to have to do that anyway. So why not?
I mean, I laugh, but it's actually a really serious thing. You're absolutely on the money here, and we should do a follow-up episode where we just talk about like money because in finances or something. But yeah, it's super interesting to me. I mean, I've heard people. I had a friend once come to me and he was like, "I just bought a bunch of Dogecoin." And I was like, "What? Why did you buy a bunch of Dogecoin?" And he's like, "Well, if it's worthless, it's worthless, I guess. But if it goes big, then I'm rich." Right? Yep. Like there's this weird mentality where people are willing to gamble on crypto and magic cards and Pokemon cards and whatever just because they think it's their like last line of defense, right? I don't know. They think it's like their only hope. And I find that rather alarming. I mean, I could dive really deep into like all my philosophy on finance, but I just try to live a somewhat frugal life. I have my vices like buying Guild Wars 2 toasters, but regardless, I do my best to save some money, give some money, spend some money. And if you can sort of live by a written budget, then you'll probably be okay. But anyway, we are sort of coming down to the wire here. We've had such a good conversation. I could talk to you for like 5 hours though. Holy.
Yeah, this was great. Someone in my chat just said they got a sports betting ad on Twitch. So
no.
I gotta go. I think you can set things you don't want to be advertised. Like you can opt out of certain like ad spend. I don't know. But yeah, they whether or not they were joking around, but yeah, just goes to show you really are exposed to gambling at all times. So
it's wild. And like in Canada, at least, we have different legislation against advertising, smoking, vaping, alcohol. Like an example is you can't really like show people all drinking. And that's why you'll see in commercials that people are just like holding a beer, but they're not like drinking the beer and stuff. It's like a weird line. They also have legislation where you can't have people that are influential toward children and stuff, like famous athletes. They're not allowed to advertise like alcohol and stuff on TV. So the Connor McDavid, famous hockey player for the Edmonton Oilers, he's not allowed to go on TV and advertise, smoking and that kind of stuff. However, for many years, he was allowed to endorse sports betting. And so they did, and they made insane money, millions and millions and millions of dollars endorsing these platforms until the Canadian government finally legislated against it about a year and a half ago, which was a big win in my books. But anyway, enough of that. Coop, it has been an absolute pleasure. This will go up on YouTube in a couple days. Do you have any shout outs for yourself? You can tell people where to find you.
Yeah, so Coop's Collection on YouTube, Coop's Collection here on Twitch, Coop's Collection TCG on Facebook. I got a lot of Facebook fans. Coop's Collection on Instagram and TikTok. I'm on basically all the social media nowadays, but or if you go to coopscollection.com, that's a way to kind of find what's going on. I actually snap for you. So I actually have my schedule. If you and your wife are ever interested, if I'm going to be
Perfect.
anywhere near a place, but yeah, coopscollection.com, I got my schedule of shows up there. So take a look at that if you're interested. But the one thing I do like to talk about, so I had a pretty hefty surgery on my face a couple months ago. I'll try to show you guys.
Oh yeah.
So I like to give a PSA, guys, wear your sunscreen, get your skin checked. I had some skin cancer I had to get removed, and I'm gonna have a nice gnarly scar on my face going forward. But I've had a lot of people reach out because it's showing up on my videos on YouTube and stuff. People are like, "Did you get in
Yeah.
a fight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been fighting off Pokemon
I kept
scalpers."
seeing the
So,
bandage, but I never like.
yep,
I think I asked. I was like, "Oh, like, is everything okay?" And
yep.
somebody mentioned it, but yeah, that's wild. Thank you for the PSA.
Absolutely. I need to find a sunscreen sponsor. We'll see. Banana
Oh,
boat.
yeah. Ha, my wife is now in the chat. Banana freckles. I've already looked at
Oh,
the
there we go.
schedule, trying to find one that works. Hey, we should go to the
Awesome.
Arizona one. There you go. I've shouted it out.
There you go. I'll be there.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Coop, for everything. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the stream after this. Because I'm going camping actually. I'm heading into the mountains this weekend,
Have
so that's what
fun.
I'm about to do. But thank you everybody for listening, watching. This will go up on YouTube in a couple days. Coop, fantastic guest. Thank you for all your insight and wisdom, and keep being awesome. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so
everybody.
much, Neb. Awesome. Take
Bye.
care.